Welcome to all the early heads in chat. Thank you very much, Mike Bishop, for the 14 months. Starting in a second. In the meanwhile, enjoy some bluesy Yugo Hour. Welcome, chatters. How are we doing this fine Tuesday? It is the 25th of March, and the year is quickly passing us by. Fucking month 3, moving into month 4. Absolutely unhinged shit. How are we doing, my fellow beauties? It is lovely to be back. I took 2 days off because I had a lot of different stuff to take care of, both for the program and for me personally. It is very nice to see all of you. What's up, Cynical Chris? What's up, MiuVDV? What's up, McJin? What's up, Emma? What's up, Crizion? What's up, Kit the Crab? And of course, Comrade Internet and Toasty Android. Hello. My hat looks like it is dirty, but it actually is not. I do not know why. My light is very strange. This hat is actually more blue. And last time I streamed, I was wearing a green tracksuit, but it looked blue in the light. I need to figure something out. Something is not right in the state of Arizona. What is up? Thank you immediately to Mike Bishop. Let's go. Currently rocking my Mao ping pong shirt at work right now. Hell yeah, drip, bruv. And thank you, Gothic Bitchcraft, for the 12 months a year. Can you even believe it? Camera and maybe the fabric. Yeah, probably a combination. The next thing I will be buying is a much better camera. Not this. You see all this fuzz around me? This is not supposed to be happening. But those motherfuckers be expensive. I'll get one soon. No worries now. Daltonic camera. Yeah, I guess that's it. The camera is disabled. The camera gets a disabled parking spot. Hello to a Chud watch / theory watch. We have a new video response from our dear friend Noah. I was late to watching his first video on stream with you guys, but I will not be late in watching the second one. That is pretty much going to cover a very large part of today's stream, and then the second part will be something I am relatively of an expert about, a topic that I'm relatively of an expert about, and that is different Nazi movements, particularly the one in the US. I can't believe I missed this from 2 weeks ago. An actual ex-Nazi that was a part of different American Nazi movements talking to us about how it worked. And then we might move into quite literally the best video, the most important video of our fucking era. Was Civilization an excuse to get drunk by friend of the show? Wow, I really need to get him on the stream, actually. It's not a bad idea. So very nice day to talk about chuds in general, and then finish it off with the opposite of a chud, which is our dear friend Wow Mao. Small updates on myself. Basically, after the stream with Gremlo last week, I went out and got absolutely fucking shit-faced. After which I took care of a lot of work, extremely hangover over the weekend. And my girlfriend was away for a second, so I spent some time with her yesterday. Listen to Toasty, as always. You can catch a lot of these streams that you might have missed over on the Yugopnik live channel. The mods are doing absolutely brilliant work with it. It's based on a shared revenue concept, so you would not just be supporting me, you would be supporting them, their edits, and their labor. But before we fully get into this, since I'm mentioning mods, most of you might have seen that we lost our dear friend and comrade EcoWaves from my post over on Twitter. I've said everything that needs to be said on this topic, in my opinion. Rest in peace, dear friend. If you would like to show respect in her name while contributing to the Palestinian cause, mods, could we please, for the entirety of this stream, have the donation link pinned in the chat. Eco gone far too soon. It was incredibly surprising to me when it did happen. The community will never be the same without you, and the community would have never been like it is now if you weren't around. So don't take a single moment for granted, is what I'm telling you, kids. Not a single fucking moment. I'm going on a fucking funeral on Thursday as well, because my girlfriend's close friend at like 31 passed away after having beaten cancer. You never know when this shit can hit you. So enjoy every single moment, and I'm extremely grateful that from all of those very, very precious moments, you sometimes choose to spend them with me. So yeah, link in description. Enlighten her name with $5, with 10, with 500, however much you can afford. She would be grateful, I would be grateful. But yeah, miss you, bro. Anyways, Eco was always unhinged, and I'm pretty sure she would not want us to lament too much. So let's start out today's stream talking specifically about the cause that she dedicated a lot of herself to, and that is the Palestinian cause, together with our dear friend Noah SAMSEN and his takedown of some of the most despicable, vile pieces of shit, quite literally the opposite of our dear friend Eco. Thank you very much, Comrade Cumin, for the 4-month sub. Thank you, Marin04, for the 4 months. I really appreciate it. Let's get into it. I don't want to make it into a bummer, even though, of course, it fucking is a bummer. Anyways. Okay, Noah SAMSEN. Let's fucking go. Wait, where is my thing? Okay, it's working. There we go. Noah SAMSEN, yeah. He is a famous Korean multi-billionaire. He basically owns the South Korean state, and he utilizes its labor force to design phones through which he plans on one day overtaking the North Korean evil anti-Samsung communists. Okay, a DPRK, now known as the world's foremost cryptocurrency enjoyers.
Since I released my video, The YouTubers Who Backed a Genocide, there have been some developments. Ethan Klein responded to the video with an Instagram story shortly after its release, where he wrote, "God, these bread tubers are such pathetic fucking rats. When the fuck did I ever support a genocide? I criticize your idol Hassan, and you all resort to straight up character assassination and horrific..."
Yeah, I mean, what did you expect? We are literally a religion here on so-called breadtube, by the way, a term that has not been used since 2021, and we all pray at the altar of the small head haver, okay? The smaller your head, the closer you are to the true deity of of communism. A streamer guy from LA.
Lies, a campaign.
No, but I love this relative cope that it's like a borderline cult experience. 20% of the people that defend Hassan because they feel very close to him, because they've learned so much through him, because they consider him a direct or indirect friend, right? I, for example, do consider him a comrade, and therefore will have a much higher propensity to defend him than somebody that I might not know. But 80% of the people that are defending, quote unquote, defending Hassan in this entire back and forth are basically defending a guy that did nothing wrong, nor said anything wrong, against a fucking Ozempic-headed psychopath who is so dedicated to being a wife guy that he is willing to flush both his mental health, his career, and other people's careers down the drain in order to defend what? A fucking apartheid state, okay? So one of the arguably most hated people on the political internet, Hassan, is being defended, sure, partially because people fuck with him on a personal basis, but more importantly, because the arguments he's putting forward are humanitarian, are normal, are anti-imperialist, and the opinions you are putting forward are unhinged, dreadful, evil, backwards, and borderline fascist. Okay? That's the fucking contrast, my friend. Thank you, Yay101, for the 2 months. Thank you very much, my friend.
Which resulted in the CPS call and harassment like I've never experienced in my 15 years on YouTube.
Motherfucker thinks that people criticize him for people criticize him for hating an influencer and not for supporting colonization, apartheid, and genocide. Yes, apparently you can't do that.
You and fuck your movement. Socialism deserves better representatives. Soon after this post, Ethan brought my video up during his live show where he threatened to sue me.
So this fucking little scumbag here who put me and Mudahar, Turkey Tom, and Destiny in a thumbnail and said the YouTubers who backed the genocide.
And Noah is so edgy. I fucking love this fucking freak. He's such a fucking freak. Okay, so the video literally starts with Ethan being like, look at the thumbnail. And what does Noah do with the next video? Same thumbnail. Same thumbnail. Oh, I'm sorry. It's such a like whipping your fucking schlong out on the table type of move. Like, yo, bro, I heard you called me a bitch. And you look him straight in the eyes and you say, yeah, bitch. Yeah, bitch. You got a problem, bitch?
This is fucking disgusting, and I'm not okay living in this world where these little fucking punk ass scumbags can just say this shit and get away with it. Like accusing people, usually defamation.
Said the little punk bitch who built his entire career about basically shit talking different celebrities. Yes. Isn't it H3H3 finds out that the internet is a thing and that everybody has opinions and everything, especially if you're a public persona. Incredible analysis.
Information can be all different types of things. Someone supporting genocide, we throw this term around a lot. That's one of the most, I mean, can you say something more fucked up about somebody than that? Sounds pretty defamatory. And again, I'm not taking any prisoners. If my attorney thinks there's anything in here, if he thinks that there's like a decent shot of defamation, I'm suing this fucking piece of shit. It's a little scumbag.
So he is threatening to...
Okay, lawsuits. There you go. I got more money than you, and I can throw more money at a lawyer than you, so I'm going to fuck you up, little bitch. Also, I got better contacts than you. That's why I reached out to the fucking Israeli State Department. That's why I allegedly, right, reached out to even the American State Department. That's why I reached out to snitch to the fucking executive body of Amazon, which owns Twitch, in order to get as many people who push for progressive politics on the platform to get kicked out of here. Okay? That's the type of individual we're talking about here, okay?
Sue me for defamation.
Not only can he not take shit, but he is willing to utilize his massive capital accrual against these people. Back in the day, people would just fucking fight. You know what? I know it's all spectacle, but I respect the fucking Paul brothers and shit more than this guy, because at least they're like, we'll go to a fucking ring and beat the living shit out of each other. Again, I know it's spectacle, but at least there's some sort of fucking honor involved. This is like, I'm gonna sit in my basement and call my fucking lawyers. Type shit, okay? As a toxic Balkan male, I cannot not only not respect it, but the snitch aspect of this fucking guy's entire personality, where he can no longer argue a point. The only thing he can do is say, "I'm gonna throw money at you till the problem goes away." Is an additional point of what makes up his personality that is deeply, deeply unnerving for me. You know, fucking wormy ass shit.
On the grounds that accusing someone of supporting genocide is messed up. I can think of something even more messed up than accusing someone of...
I'm very pro-Palestinian, but everything I do is trying to deplatform pro-Palestinian creators and center my own feelings. And more importantly, your wife's feelings, my friend. For Ethan's greatest crime is not having rent-a-friends, not literally having the complexity of opinions of an 11-year-old, but being a wife guy, being an ultimate incredible wife guy. And for who? For fucking Hila Klein, bro. You're doing the wife guy bit for Hila Klein, my guy. Holy shit.
Of supporting genocide, which is, actually supporting genocide. I can't imagine that it's pleasant to be confronted with the idea that you might be supporting a genocide, so the instinct here to deflect and deny without even offering any sort of actual defense against the points is an entirely predictable response. This is how the
Sorry, before we begin, so a Ukrainian friend got me this. It exists in Ukraine. I don't know if it exists anywhere else. So it's an IQOS, but it's like a vape, and it doesn't smell as intense, and it burns the throat a little bit. It's really nice. And she got me a bunch of pods, so shout out. That's what we're smoking, and the drip is simple. The drip is simple. And since we're talking about Ethan Klein, I don't know, I have this old polo hat, and it's got a little teddy that's not that fresh on it, so I thought it would work well with the green mask. But clean, very clean. Very clean. And of course the chains right here. Baby, baby, baby. Anyways, back.
Liberal media class will operate in the coming decades when it's time to answer for their crimes of manufacturing consent for a genocide. They will simply say, "No, I didn't," if they say anything at all. Most of them won't. It's happened throughout history. It happened with the Vietnam War. It happened with the invasion of Iraq. And it'll happen again with Gaza. What makes Gaza a bit different, though, is that unlike prior US-backed atrocities abroad, we all know what's been happening there the entire time.
That is a very, very good and very important point to always really push, and I'm glad that Noah does, is that up until this point, we've never had a moment in history that is both so despicable, yet so massively reported on, so fucking transparent when it comes to what is happening on the ground, that arguably you could make a point that back in the day people didn't really know what fascist Vietnamese were doing, or what the Marines were doing in Vietnam, if we're using, for example, the Vietnam parallel, because there was just massive media censorship. But now, thanks to many platforms, but more importantly many people who speak on those platforms and then amplify the voices of Palestinians, of Palestinian journalists, and their general struggle, to say that you were blind to what is happening is no longer a acceptable argument for anybody. At this point in time, if you are not supportive of the Palestinian struggle after everything that has happened, okay, and this is a Marxist who genuinely does not believe in liberal ideas of morality, I genuinely think that most morals come from subjective experience and therefore do not exist in this on the same plane for everyone. But when it comes to this, just everyone has had so much access to what has been happening in Palestine that if you do not support the Palestinian cause, you're objectively, from any single fucking perspective, and again, as somebody who does not believe in objective morality, an absolute and utter piece of fucking shit. And I hope your fucking kids hate you one day.
US-backed atrocities abroad, we all know what's been happening there the entire time. Israel's genocide of Palestinians in Gaza has been called the first ever live-streamed genocide because we've seen the entire thing as it's happened with high-definition cell phone video. The mass destruction, the ruthless attacks on the healthcare system, the deliberate targeting of men, women, children.
That was literally my video that popped off, and not to tap myself on the back, but when it comes to this, kind of really started the conversation, where I hardcore plugged, like, you know, social media influencers during a genocide, right? Like, not only are incredibly brave Palestinian men and women and journalists recording all of this, but it's IDF soldiers themselves that are openly flaunting with their crimes. Again, there's absolutely zero fucking conversation to be had when it comes to arguing about what is happening in Gaza with anyone. It would be the same as arguing gravity or whether the earth is round. This is non-fucking negotiable anymore. Do you understand me? This is 100% non-negotiable. This is pure fact. As much of a fact as when you drip cold water on your hands, you will feel cold. Okay? Period. The fact that we even have to do this is absolutely unhinged, and it should be paralleled to quite literally arguing with a fucking flat earther. Though that also would be problematic because to an extent a flat earther doesn't really hurt anyone, but arguing, giving any sort of arguments that justify the IOF and its actions in Gaza and further, literally leads to the continuation of this horrible atrocity and more lives being lost. So you're really a piece of shit. Like, you really are a piece of shit. Or you should genuinely go get re-educated. I'm not talking concentration camps. I'm talking you should go to, like, grade 1. Because you obviously cannot properly process information the way an adult should. So you really should, you are not literate. You are not literate. You're either evil or you are not literate if you, at this point, do not understand what is happening there. Thank you, Glacy, very much for the 14 months.
Medics, aid workers, the intentional starvation used by Israel as a weapon of war, and then the massacres that followed that starvation when Palestinians crowded around aid trucks trying to get what little food Israel was allowing into the Strip, the 20,000 slain children, many of them slaughtered with their entire families, the IDF terrorists recording and posting their war crimes, acts of humiliation, degradation, their torture and rape of Palestinians, the full support of Israel throughout all of these atrocities, the vile, dehumanizing racism that is required to uphold a project like this.
I just think we need to kill them, every one of them, and that's it. And if not that, because the country will not let that happen, the government. Just, the least we can do is just kick them out of our land, because this is our home, this is our land, and we deserve it.
What do you think about Palestinians?
That I hate them, and I wish they all died. We didn't stop, and we killed everyone.
You're gonna kill everyone?
Yes!
You guys are animals. You guys are f***ing animal terrorists.
You killed 10,000 kids.
10,000 terrorists that would grow up to be the next. 10,000 kids that would grow up to be the next terrorist. That's what it is.
Really?
Because it's Palestine.
But I'm Palestinian. Does that mean I'm a terrorist?
Yes.
I'm a terrorist. Do you want Palestinians in Gaza to die?
Yes.
All of them?
Yes.
Oh my God.
We've seen all of this, which is why the whole "no, I didn't" defense doesn't hold up because, you know.
Chat power levels, motherfuckers. I'm looking at you. I love you. If you want to say something that's not allowed, you just write power levels, okay? Or you use that very specific emote. Thank you. I love you. Don't fucking fed me here, please.
Yes, you did. We have you on video during this genocide that everyone saw, spreading propaganda that's been used to justify that genocide.
It's so vile to deny the suffering and trauma of the victims just because you need your heroes at Hamas to be perfect.
My friends, defeating our brutal enemies requires both courage.
Eurolibs are currently boycotting the U.S., but not for the support of Israel or the bloodshed caused by the U.S., but simply for Trump being a moron. I hate libs. The Eurolibs are protesting Trump by quite literally not protesting him, but still being cucks, but simply being like, we're going to wiggle my finger at him. and even that little bit that they're doing is because their own personal interests in the long term are being damaged by the Trump administration. So yes, I agree with you. Just, they are protesting, but they are completely powerless because they've been cucked by the U.S. State Department for so long. But even that little powerless amount of protesting is quite literally because their feelings have been hurt. Ooh. But the literal fucking heads flying off of Palestinian heads were never enough for them to even wiggle the finger. Except for, of course, God bless, a couple of fucking politicians and a couple of heads of state that had the audacity to stand up.
Courage and clarity. Clarity begins by knowing the difference between good and evil. And these monsters, they rape women, they burnt babies alive. Many anti-Israel protesters, many choose to stand with evil. They stand with Hamas. They stand with rapists and murderers.
The Gazan Health Ministry, which, by the way, Gaza Health Ministry is run by Hamas, terrorist organization. I think a lot of people are all too happy to not look too deep into these things, but again, Gaza Health Ministry.
Yeah, and Tesla got a massive bump. Of course Tesla got a massive fucking bump. Toasty, did you manage to pull out before the bump? The bump was, I think, in the last week, like 20% or some shit. Did you manage to pull out? Did you get some dinero? If anybody was shorting Tesla, I hope you didn't think it's gonna last forever. I love you if you did, but come on, it is capitalism, and that is a billionaire literally in power in the American executive body. Nope, I'm betting on it crashing again. Good for you. God bless. I mean, not financial advice. I don't know. Let's see. Thank you, Fenian Marxist, for the 5 months. If you would like to be like Fenian Marxist and hear me say thank you while also supporting the show and avoiding the ad that is going to play in the next 3 minutes and 30 seconds, then join us on the great jihad against advertising. Every time we reach 2,000 subscribers, we become truly, truly free from the greatest dispossession that capitalism has ever given us, after mass murder and chaos, of course, and that is advertising. If you're already a subscriber and you have some money laying around, also consider supporting your fellow brothers, sisters, and NBs in this great fight against advertising. Thank you, my beautiful child soldiers. Enlistments are now open. Ad plays in 2 minutes and 50 seconds. Fuck ads.
Ministry is Hamas. There was more Jews displaced than Palestinians during the Nakba.
We have you on video attacking and delegitimizing the only groups in the world militarily resisting that genocide, with arguments plucked directly from the U.S. State Department, the #1 material supporter of the genocide.
Terrorist groups.
We have you on video attacking and delegitimizing the most prominent media figures in the YouTube space who have been advocating against the genocide and breaking down the propaganda used to justify it.
Hassan loves all terrorists.
We have you on video running defense for the primary architects of the genocide.
Just the other day, Bibi fired a really good guy that a lot of people are pissed about, and he fired him because they had a disagreement, and that's like so Trump-coded.
Well, he was like a moderating voice in the war room.
Yeah.
It's so Trump-coded. Yo, you should support the other guys in Israel, not Bibi, because Bibi is Trump-coded and the other ones are 99% Trump-coded. Hey, we have good leaders back in Israel, like 99% Hitler, 99.4% Hitler. You know, we have all types of Hitlers, not just 100% Hitler. Like, don't judge us all based on 100% Hitler. But also be afraid, because we have 110% Hitler. If he comes to power, then it's going to be really bad. Oh, how much worse than this can it be? And Israelis are just standing there like, heh.
אין חשמל, אין מזון, אין מים, אין דלק. הכל סגור. אנחנו נלחמים בחיות אדם.
We have you on video attempting to portray the perpetrator of that genocide as some kind of beautiful, free, diverse, democratic state.
We're planning to go to Israel in June with my parents and all the kids. It's going to be such a great trip. And I'm actually really excited to go there. I want to show you guys.
You haven't been there in so long.
It's been a long fucking time. What I want to do is show you guys how I see Israel, because you don't see that. When you listen to Hassan and you hear all these fucking mega lefties talking about it, like it's some super.
He's gonna be like, look, chat, look at the hummus, look at how on time the trains are. Look at how clean the streets are, if you know what I mean.
Racist, like
you only see the genocide aspect of it. You look at how good the trains are and stuff. Look at the infrastructure.
Crazy, like Jim Crow style of society. Like, I can't wait to show you guys how beautiful, how multicultural, how like free it feels for people, or just it's a beautiful place. It is.
The funniest part about this is obviously something that so many people have already said, and that before he was running full defense on Israel, because he's wife guy maxing, and also because he's unhinged and very stupid, he kind of found Israel to be shit. He never liked Israel. He was like, this is really not my type of fucking place. But now all of a sudden it's really his type of place because he needs to run defense for the most transparent genocide in modern history, if not in history permanently.
It's one of the most diverse places I've ever been.
These people all seem to believe that in order for someone to back a genocide, they need to like look into the camera and say, I support genocide. I think it's good. More of that, please. And while we do have examples of certain parties to the conflict here doing just that, like Destiny and Asmongold,
I'm not going to cry a fucking river when people who have genocide that's baked into their laws are getting genocided. I don't give a fuck. They're terrible people.
I'm pro-genocide. It sounds really shitty, but like I think that Israel should just draw up its fucking borders about where it is now, and basically Palestinians can go live in another place.
The most common and effective way to back a genocide doesn't look like that. Mainstream Western outlets don't say those Palestinian kids deserve to be killed. No, they say that some kids died when bombs dropped, that Israel says it was dropping on Hamas, which is a US designated terrorist organization. The mainstream Western media doesn't say that there are no innocent civilians in Gaza. They simply quote the death tolls as being reported by the Hamas, aka terrorist-run health ministry, and then report uncritically the IDF saying that most of them are soldiers actually, and soldiers are terrorists by the way, so who's to say what's actually true? The mainstream Western media doesn't say that Yemeni children deserve to die because they're all Houthi terrorists. They simply cite the Houthi-run health ministry, aka terrorist-run health ministry. So when the US and Saudi Arabia kill those children, it's a sad event in the overall morally righteous fight against terrorists. Terrorism is bad, remember, and terrorists are the bad guys. So if some kids died while they were going after terrorists, I guess that's just war. We saw the same response of, no, I didn't, from Mutahar.
That's literally like the dumbest guy you know's main argument for massive civilian casualties in conflicts, which of course cannot even be applied here because there is nothing conventional about this so-called war. Again, you have absolutely no excuses. You have access to all the fucking information. This is ethnic cleansing. This is a genocide. Why the fuck are we even playing this game anymore?
Of the large YouTube channel Some Ordinary Gamers. When Hassan Piker shared my video on his Instagram story, Mutahar responded to this post writing, I get watching other people's videos is all you're really good at, but try vetting out slander before promoting. I have never defended or backed the Israeli genocide on innocent Gazans. Never will I ever. Following this, there was a bit of a back and forth. Hassan responded to Mutahar on Twitter writing, in your only video on Gaza, you admit to not knowing about politics. You try to cover Israel-Palestine as drama slop for a centrist audience, you defend Asmongold for his inferior cultures and genocide comment, then attack pro-Palestinian voices. Mutahar wrote back, yes, I do admit to not being an expert on the topic. I didn't cover it as a drama since it isn't one. Serious situations with dead...
Mutahar is your dumbest friend's favorite content creator, okay? The classic, hey, the situation is complex. You do not understand how complex it is. I had read 12 Wikipedia articles before starting to record this video in my rancid fucking apartment, and trust me, it is very, very complex.
People and attacks happening every day. I just don't downplay rapes and sugarcoat violent organizations like you. Also didn't defend Asman in vid. Later, Hassan wrote, we were a year into the genocide here. This was your only video on the topic. It downplayed and ran defense for Asmongold's takes, while the bulk of your commentary revolved around how evil the pro-Palestinian streamers were. From clips you...
If you're both citing a moment in history where there is massive ethnic cleansing being committed, you are supporting the ethnic cleansers, okay? That's what we call liberal Zionism. This is not complicated. This is really not complicated. And when you're pitching yourself as this like very smart guy in a dimly lit room that is covering everything that nobody dares to cover, and you're the rational mind to whom everyone can refer to when it comes to different divisive moments in pop culture and politics, you lose that fucking card the second you start behaving like this.
Compiled off of snark Reddits. Mutahar's final response was, "It's almost as if the bulk of the commentary matched what the video was titled and centered about, Twitch allowing violent and unfiltered rhetoric from your camp on its platform. The clips were actually sourced from the creators who streamed them." So what do we make of this exchange? Well, first, Mutahar denied covering the genocide as drama, but that's exactly what...
No, Mutahar did not cover the genocide at all. The only thing he covered is to talk shit about pro-Palestinian creators on the platform. What does that make you? End of conversation. What does that fucking make you?
He did. He has never once uploaded a video covering this topic, except for when that coverage was filtered through a smear campaign that was making the rounds in the commentary community.
He saw, dude. He saw that exactly, that it's making the rounds, and that Herder look at the leftists being cucked by Twitch because they have pushed this too far, and this is the new adpocalypse, etc., etc. He was like, I can make a couple of $1,000 from a video covering this. Let's just get into it. That's why Hassan's comment that he covered it is like regular fucking drama content is correct, because these people are like the quintessential digital capitalist product. They are continuous fucking scavengers that roam the internet, and when they get big enough, they employ like 10 people to roam the internet and write these videos for them very often, in order for them to get maximum revenue on every controversial point there is. But sometimes they bite off far more than they can chew, and that is the case with Palestine, obviously. Thank you, Nina. No, for the 14 months. Thank you very much.
About a content creator they all don't like. Hassan bad. He denies defending Asmongold in his video, once again making no effort to actually defend himself on that point. But that's also false. Mutahar whitewashed Asmongold's comments further than anyone else, really. He went so far as to change the content of what Asmongold actually said to make it seem like he wasn't talking about Palestinians when he was.
In this situation, one could, if they were to extend the
centrists are now centrist chuds because money, pretty much.
Charitability, could say that Asmongold was probably referring to extremists in the Islamic religion.
Even Asmongold himself admitted that that's what he said when he apologized. This is why he was banned. Now, whether Mutahar stands...
Ask Mutahar if he would take a balanced approach on a conversation about India being a very dirty country and Indians being very dirty. Obviously, untrue and fucking racist as shit. But I remember back when people were making that grand generalization, he got kind of pissed off. Maybe because grand generalizations about a more complex issue are, fucking stupid. Thank you, Drew Stew. Thank you, brother. Thank you very much.
By this
for the 2-month streak.
Characterization of Asmongold's genocidal rhetoric or not is a different question. But he did do that, and the record shows this. His video is still uploaded on his channel. You can go watch it. Denying this seems to be just indicative of a lack of reflection on his part. Entirely predictable, but worth noting nonetheless. The "no, I didn't" defense is the expected response from centrists and liberal Zionists alike, but I don't know how well it'll hold up in court. I didn't back genocide. How could you say that? I just sat silently the entire time it happened, except for the one time I spoke up, which was actually to attack pro-Palestine activists with bad...
Exactly what I just said.
Bad faith smears that originate from a community of openly genocidal Zionists.
I'm pro-genocide.
They're terrible people.
Best of luck to you in your legal endeavors should you pursue them. I don't know how well that'll hold up, but have fun, I guess. In his last tweet, Mutahar seems to deny his participation in the smear campaign, writing, "The clips were sourced from the creators who streamed them. This is false. Mutahar did not source these clips from Hassan's stream. He sourced these clips directly from the smear website. He cited the website out loud and said, go check it out, guys.
There's a website known as DanClancySucks.com where it goes through a treasure trove of some of the most popular streamers on the site. One of the most popular political streamer, Hassan Piker.
As we went over...
Literally, his whole page is on Hassan Piker. The man lives, breeds, and goons, probably Hassan Piker. Holy shit.
For this website is a compilation of out-of-context clips and arguments attacking pro-Palestine creators that openly embraces the support of genocidal Zionist organizations like the ADL and genocidal Zionist politicians like Richie Torres. The
That website was previously called hamasabi.com, of course.
community from which all of these allegations originate is that of a content creator who says things like this.
He is interviewing the...
But like Conspiracy Hour with Hugo, okay? Conspiracy Hour with Hugo. What song should I play for Conspiracy Hour with Hugo? Okay, no, I'll just... Conspiracy Hour with Hugo. A lot of these people have most of their videos written by writers because they are very, very lazy. And then they need to run defense on what their writers had written, and they don't really know how to run defense on something that they haven't written themselves. So the argument gets lost in space because their own writers are probably lying to them because they understand that the places they sourced most of this from are bullshit. But they were like, the guy I write for is kind of dumb. He never realizes the amount of agenda that I'm trying to slide in. So he will believe me when I tell him that this website, for example, covered all sorts of Twitch streamers and not just Hamasabi. So yeah, Conspiracy Hour with Hugo. I genuinely think that, most of these people hold these opinions, but also there is kind of a loss in communication between them and their very, very large teams. From inside the industry, I do not do this. I write 100% of my videos. I think I pay very, very well for my main channel editor, and Yugopnik live channel is going to be, once it starts monetizing more, a complete co-op between me and my editors, right? But like an inside information you might not know, a shit ton of the guys you really, really like and whose videos you really, really like are not written by them. Just saying.
A guy who's about to go do some shit to get himself killed, basically. That's what's gonna happen.
What the fuck? Where did the $3 thing go? Shit, where did the $3 thing go? Why didn't it play like an alert? My alerts were down. Son of a bitch. Thank you for the $3, Officer Gavin. Officer Gavin, can you post it so I re-say it? Sorry, officer. Sorry, Gavin, post it in chat. I'm going to read it out in the voice chat thing.
We know from this point, that's what's going to happen. So he walks away, gets back a little bit, and then he sets up behind this thing, right? Is this concealment, I guess? Not cover, concealment, right? Because I think the tank's over here. So now he can capture the footage right here. He sees the guys walking, knowing that they're about to get shot, because that's what's going to happen. And then eventually they get shot, and everything is, this is it. It's like Act 1, 2, and 3. It's like all here. Now this guy...
I used to hate facial hair, but then it grew on me. Okay, not a bad one. Kind of worth the $3, I agree.
He's down. He's dead. These guys are like...
and fatally wounded.
They're not even running. They're not even like...
Chat power levels. Don't fucking post crazy shit. Please, I love you. If you want to say something unhinged, don't say it right power levels. Thank you.
Cowering and running away and screaming in fear. There's like, okay, well, they did it. We got our shots. Okay, is this guy done? Oh, shit. Well, okay. Well, we brought the white flag, so we can put that over the bleeding part, assuming he got shot and is actually right.
Flag
and then this guy, what, is this guy running back to grab the wife?
By this stage, the man's wife, his widow, has heard what happened.
And then, like, what does this mean? The wife has heard what happened. Like, bro, this is crazy. I'm sorry. The tracking live movement shot of the lady running up to her dead husband? Like, what is this?
By this stage,
it is what it looks like.
Wonderful, a new child soldier. I mean,
Bro,
subscriber.
What? Thank you very much, Palmer. Are we watching Mr. Divorcelli today? We're watching a lot of chuds today, my friend. Thank you very much for the support.
The man's wife, his widow, has heard what happened.
Somebody went back and told her, right? The 5 martyrs that walked forward, you know, your husband was the unlucky guy. He drew the short stick today, so come forward, cry for us on camera. Do you think the guy intentionally wanted to get killed? No, I don't.
This is what happens when you permanently live on the fucking internet and you want to get a deeper understanding of what is happening in a particular part of the world through I don't know, the recording practices of the fucking journalist. It's the furthest away you can be from an actual professional journalist or analyst that I can absolutely imagine, because you never go there and touch the fucking shit you're looking at.
I don't think he wanted to die. I don't think they were thinking they were going to die, but they probably were hoping to get shot at, or maybe. So you're saying the woman was acting? I don't think the woman was acting. She probably was sincerely sad. Her husband got fucking killed. But I think they were farming TikTok clips. I mean, remember, these people, I mean these people who actually, yeah, like have suicide bombers. So it's not that big of a stretch to imagine that they would be willing to get shot. However, now I haven't gone down this road, because this is way more, it would require me to make a lot more assumptions, but it's also possible he didn't get shot. Right? Now, do we know the name of the guy? Is he actually dead? Do we even know if that's his wife? These are a whole bunch of questions that would be valid. Now, if I was way more on the pro-Zionist side, I would be asking those questions. Who is this guy? Do we even know if he's actually fucking dead? Like, we don't actually see the wound. Right? It seems like they don't have any problem showing anything else. Like, why just the white flag so that it can look all bloody? Like, show us the actual gunshot. You have no problem showing other violence, right? What Pallywood means is that you're capturing intentional video footage to sell a certain narrative about what's going on, basically. So Pallywood might be, this, right? So the idea is that like 4 innocent civilians are like walking up, and you just want like a clip here of the IDF shooting them for no reason because they're civilians with white flags. And you kind of ignore the fact that like, okay, well, they're in a battle zone in an area they were told to evacuate from, and they're going back to try to release somebody that was captured. Like, that's like Pallywood, I think. You're essentially provoking the enemy to take what is largely a justified action, and then trying to say that it's like indiscriminate civilian killing. It's like
He's saying that people are willingly killing themselves by doing the opposite of what the IDF is telling them to do, in order to farm content so that white people in America can feel bad for them and maybe help them. That's the argument he's making.
A setup. It's not fake.
People are killing themselves with IDF bullets and IDF tanks and IDF planes so we can farm content. I never thought we could reach such fucking content brain rot, but apparently we can.
But they're doing it to
Remember, guys, my whole life is based on content. That means that some people's deaths might also be based on content.
Themselves.
Speaking of that guy, Destiny, the genocidal Zionist sex criminal video game streamer, he also had a crack at responding to my video where he made some interesting points. Destiny criticized my characterization of the 2018 Gaza border protests as being overwhelmingly peaceful by citing instances of violent actions that protesters took part in during the 2018 border protests, or the Great March of Return, which were recognized by human rights organizations as being overwhelmingly peaceful.
Overwhelmingly peaceful. Just as a quick thing, because people love to talk about the Great March of Return, the Peaceful March of Return. All of this is like the Peaceful Great March of Return. Remember this, okay?
Remember how 15 seconds ago this man said that people like to farm particular parts of a conflict in order to push an agenda, and how Palestinians are trying to push the agenda that there is a act of genocide against the civilian population, but there really isn't. But it's a long-term plan that both domestic journalists and Hamas is trying to utilize. Well, now he is actually doing that thing from the comfort of his fucking American house. Oh, look at this place where people were protesting and then thousands of them got shot. Look at this one shot where the guy throws a thing. It's definitely them that are trying to construe a narrative, not me at all.
Right, this is all the Peaceful Great March of Return.
Now, when I used the word overwhelmingly in my video, I used it as the word is meant to be used, which is to mean overwhelmingly, which means what the word means, which is to a very great degree or with a great majority.
Overwhelmingly.
Some instances of violence during these protests do not contradict.
And this would, but still, this conversation cannot be applied to a place where there's been so many fucking civilian casualties. You understand? If this was a place where it would still be fucked up, but there was like 400, 500 civilian casualties, and it's like a active war zone, blah, 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 still civilian casualties are almost never acceptable, etc. You know what I mean? But this sort of argument could like semi-fly, right? But when it comes to Gaza, it's the most highly fucking recorded act of mass murder in history, the most transparent one. And using this sort of argumentation for this is not just inhuman, but it's also just very fucking stupid. And it warrants you understanding that your audience will pretty much listen to anything you put out because it's a fucking cult.
my use of this word. The protests were overwhelmingly nonviolent, which is exactly what the UN report found.
The protest camps set up along the fence can make you do a double take. In parts, they look like a community festival, a carnival, a fair, like a distant cousin to Burning Man. Women prepare falafel sandwiches, barbers give haircuts and trim beards. Lip syncers and dancers perform in the shade. Actors ham it up playing cruel Israeli soldiers. Families come with their children.
Ultimately, though, regardless of how the protests were characterized overall, the reason I brought them up in my video was as evidence that Israel has a history of intentionally targeting Palestinian civilians for slaughter. That's what the UN report found. Israeli snipers intentionally targeted medics, journalists, men, women, children, elderly people, and disabled people. Cite whatever instances of property damage, tire...
But Noah, have you thought about this video?
Burning, flag planting, rock throwing you want. These are irrelevant to the fact that Israel intentionally targeted thousands of civilians with sniper fire. The commission interviewed an international journalist covering the demonstrations at the Malika site who described the scene that day. What was notable was the amount of injured people and the slow, methodical shooting. Every few minutes, you would hear a shot ring out and you would see someone fall, and then another shot and another person fell. It went on for hours. I saw a man who had been shot in the throat. I didn't see it happen, but I saw the immediate aftermath. He was covered in blood. I saw a man who had been shot in the head. There was a constant stream of bloody bodies being carried back towards the ambulances. It was surreal and endless. It became almost normal. It was happening so often. A shot, a person falling, people carrying the body away. The number of wounded was astonishing. I couldn't say how many people I saw who were shot because it was so high. I have covered...
Good to see you, friend. Thanks for amplifying the fundraiser. Of course, you guys did a great job.
Wars in Syria, Yemen, Libya, and I've never seen anything like this. The slow, methodical shooting. It was just shocking. Presenting this fact is only a one-sided history if you think intentional civilian targeting is somehow warranted due to other unrelated instances of violence, which definitionally cannot be true. This is, of course, if we're taking international law into account, but Destiny's a Zionist, so that's not high on his priority list.
I'm pro-genocide.
Destiny has had similar Israel glazing-induced English language difficulties in the past. He had this same response when Norman Finkelstein brought up the 2018 border protests in the Lex Friedman Israel-Palestine debate early last year.
In 2018, there was the Great March of Return in Gaza. By all reckonings of human rights organizations and journalists who were there, it was overwhelmingly nonviolent. Along the Gaza perimeter, there was Israel's best trained snipers, correct?
I don't know best trained. They were snipers.
Fine.
Snipers.
Okay. All right.
Because
hey, laugh. It's hilarious. The story's so funny.
You're lying about the Great March of Return had aspects of violence to it. According, even the UN says it themselves.
Okay.
But you only collect what the UN says that you like.
You see, the problem, Mr. Morelli, is you don't know the English language.
I can read from the UN website itself. In regards to the Great March of Return, they said, while the vast majority of protesters have acted in a peaceful manner, during most protests, dozens have approached the fence attempting to damage it, burning tires, throwing stones and Molotov cocktails towards Israeli forces, and flying incendiary kites and balloons into Israeli territory. The latter resulted in extensive damage to agricultural land and nature reserves inside Israel and risked the lives of Israeli civilians. Some incidents of shooting and throwing of explosives have also been reported.
Talk fast. So people think that you're coherent.
Notice Destiny's retort to Norm's description of the protests being overwhelmingly nonviolent is that there were actually aspects of violence. This is not a contradiction. Overwhelmingly means overwhelmingly.
عمري 16 سنة صوبت في يوم الأرض تاريخ 30/3 يوم الجمعة كنت على الحدود الشرقية في رفح. كان في آلاف المتظاهرين والمتظاهرات شباب وفتيات ونساء وأطفال وشيوخ. وصلت على الساعة 9 صباحا. بدينا إنه أول ما وصلنا قعدنا شفنا وين رح نقعد وبعديها رجعنا صلينا الجمعة ورجعنا أنا وصاحبتي. لما وصلنا لقينا كل الشباب راجعين كلهم لورا ما حد متقدم. فمسكنا أنا وياها إيد بعض ووصلنا نقدم قدامهم واجوا باقي البنات صاروا يمسكوا ايدينا والشباب صاروا يهتفوا لنا ويشجعونا اكثر مشان نقدم اكثر. كنت امسك الاعلام وأغرسهم وأقرب أكتر وأكتر. غرست العلم ومسكت علم تاني وصرت ألوح فيه. فالاحتلال يعني ما عجبه هالمنظر يعني. طبعا يعني كنت أنا محروقة يعني من جوا، كنت بغلي يعني. تعرف شوف في كل الظلم يعني أنت بتعيش كل يوم.
Dude, there's 3 walls, 8-foot fences, and professional soldiers in ditches. And on the other side, there is a large congregation of mostly peaceful protesters, and some of them who are like fucking pissed off and they want to protest a bit more intensely, and they're waving their flags or they're throwing a couple of rocks. And that, in your opinion, should justify a police force, in this case a military force, to use long-range rifles and start popping them off in their head, including even some people in wheelchairs. What kind of conversation is this? This is not the type of conversation that's ever warranted for a situation like this. Oh, it's okay that they killed a lot of fucking civilians because a part of the protesters were a bit violent. Do you think we should apply this when people protest in Washington? Do you think this should be applied over in Moscow? Do you think that should be applied in Paris? Do you think that once people that are protesting start hurling rocks or destroying private property, the police force should be able to open fire? The crazy aspect of me asking that question is that he would probably answer it with yes, which speaks volumes.
كنت من الأقلية الموجودين يعني كنا بنعد على أصابعي اللي قدام. وأنا قدمت كتير وكنت بعيد عن اليهود أقل إشي 20 متر. لما لوحت في العلم سمعت صوت طلقة صابت صدمة.
Yo, Hugo, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but I've heard from a birdie in the Air Force and other leakers in the Trump admin about Trump delivering GU-57 Moabs to Israel. They only had like one, and they used it earlier. The claim will be as deterrence for Iran, but you cannot deliver these bombs with anything that could get past Iran's air defense, so they could only be using this on Lebanon, Syria, and most likely Gaza. I pray to God that this is not true, but even if it is, there will be a fucking bloodbath. Yeah. It's, Gaza's the prime real estate for the American military-industrial complex to test out their toys. Thank you very much, Negman, for the sub with Prime. Welcome to the community, my friend. If you would like to support the show, same like Negman, and avoid all ads, please do consider becoming a subscriber for $6 a month, free through Prime, and less in certain countries. Or by gifting those less privileged than you. You will feel good, they will feel good, and I will feel very, very good, which will then make you feel even better. That's how the world works, actually, I promise.
يعني كابوس. أول ما شالوني وقعت على الأرض، بعدين شالوني ثاني مرة ودوني على الإمبلاس. كنت يعني بدي أنام، كنت وجع كتير.
Now you find it so far-fetched. Israelis purposely, deliberately targeting civilians? That's such a far-fetched idea. An overwhelmingly non-violent march. What did the UN investigation find? Brace yourself. You thought it was so funny, the idea of IDF targeting civilians. It found, go look this up on your machine.
I already know what you're going to say. You're going to say it found...
On your machine, I love it. I never change, bro.
One or two of them were justified killings.
Targeted journalists, targeted medics, and here's the funniest one of all. It's so hilarious. They targeted disabled people who were 300 meters away from the fence and just standing by trees.
Zionism's crazy because it kind of backs you into a corner of having to defend the indefensible. And I don't know, if you're as shameless as Destiny is, that's not really an issue.
They're doing it.
Not just shameless, like Arabs in general, in this case Palestinians, are not human to him, okay? He genuinely believes that they have some sort of inherent racial or religious category which de facto leads them to being hyper-violent, and therefore their eradication is a means to self-defense. Right? I truly, truly believe that Destiny deep down mostly from a lot of his comments that usually come from moments of emotion and moments of overreaction, that's the truth that he actually believes in. Like, this guy, unironically, festers a massive amount of just anti-Arab racism. Sometimes it is as simple as that. It's not that much his love towards Israel, but his belief that the only way that you can coexist with Arabs in general is by not coexisting with them, but removing them from your premises. And if you think that certain premises that they already live in are your premises, by removing them from those as well. So I genuinely, unironically, it might be an oversimplification, but in case of Destiny, I genuinely think it is as simple as bigotry. Genuinely is as simple as bigotry. Because there's no other way to explain it.
To themselves.
But for most rational human beings,
he said it before, he's not pro-Israel, but anti-Arab. There you go. Exactly.
You see someone arguing that and you say, oh, that's an insane person. And that's the high ground we have on Zionism. The more people understand the truth, the less people are going to be publicly willing to defend these crimes. Destiny later nitpicks my comment about the media's use of terrorist designation in articles. Before covering the attack, these outlets always, of course, make sure to mention Hezbollah's US designation as a terrorist organization. Don't worry, guys. They were just terrorists. Nothing to see here. We got the bad guys. They were bad. We are good. Mission accomplished.
Relying on a US terrorist designation is retarded. But you don't need to do that. You could just know what Hezbollah is, which is like a paramilitary militant group that's funded by fucking Iran that now has like seats in the fucking Lebanese government that is like hostily taken over the southern part of that country, right? You could just know that. You don't have a U.S. terrorist designation. But we're gonna start simping for them now? Is that what we're gonna do? Okay.
Even if we're going to explore the reasons why this terrorist designation is to him not illegitimate, it only reinforces the circular logic of the terrorist label. You don't have to call them terrorists to know that they are terrorists. Just look at what they do. They kill civilians. They violently overthrow governments. They take over entire countries. Okay, well, the US does all of those things, but it isn't on the US designated terrorist list, is it? Israel is US backed, the US being, by the criteria we just looked at, a terrorist state, but they're not on the list either. It's almost like these designations are selective and used to reinforce US imperial hegemony. Oh my god, no way. What?
These subhuman, Neanderthal, knuckle-dragging, white dipshits, like Noah too, will sit here and fucking defend Hezbollah, which is what he's doing, as like a legitimate governing party. Hassan, the terrorist supporter as well, who is also very white. Don't ever be mistaken by his background or the way he looks sometimes, depending on what he's trying to present. Hassan is also one of the whitest people in the West, okay?
One of the whitest people in the West. He's one of the white...
Wait, oh my god, I paused by accident. I'm keeping this on the screen by accident. I can't play the video. Why is music playing? I can't, I'm pressing space. I'm pressing space, it's not moving. I'm pressing space.
Whitest people in the West, folks. You've never
working.
seen a whiter guy than this Hassan guy. Ultimately, we don't need to take people like Destiny seriously. Zionists criticizing Hezbollah is not doing so in good faith. Obviously, he is a Zionist. He supports the genocidal Israeli regime and opposes resistance to it, which is what Hezbollah is. The group exists as a response to Israel's repeated colonial killing sprees in Lebanon, which are not terrorism, apparently, because...
We take a small break from this because we are on a hype train, and as you all know, whenever we have a hype train, we watch Chinese TikToks here on YugopnikTwitch as a means to raise money both for the channel and entertain you beautiful motherfuckers at the same time. So let me open up the Chinese TikTok, and as long as this beautiful hype train lasts, you will get edgy Chinese memes. Thank you ZVIH for the fucking 15 months, you fucking unhinged piece of shit, one of the fucking OGs. Thank you very much, ZVIH. Let's start you out with Le Thick Lady, because you guys are fucking... Oh, no, it's not even a video. That is so fucked up. Okay, let's start you out with this guy.
Wonderful, a new child.
Thank you very much, Orbital Pyramid. Okay, there's no way that fucking happens. You know when your egg is fucking bad. Does this commonly happen to people? Come the fuck on, please. Monitor how old your fucking food is. Jesus Christ. No video, Hugo? What the fuck? Ah, shit. So you missed the thick Asian girl, and that was very unintentional of me. Ha ha ha! There is no such thing as a coincidence on YugopnikTwitch. So yeah, this is the egg video. If this happens to you, please take better care of your food, please. Always treat your siblings like complete pieces of shit, because that's how you become a better brother, said the guy that has no siblings. A new thing that you might not have known about me. Thank you, Lydia the Puppy, for the tier 1 sub, and thank you, Replay It Back, and thank you, Neckman, for the 5 gifties. Let us continue. This is me when no subbies. This is me when no subbies. Very sad boy. Thank you, Neckman. You got triggered by the eggs.
A new child soldier, subscriber.
This is Hugo with no subbies. I'm like, why is everyone getting subbies but me? Oh. God. This is me when subbies. This is me when a lot of subbies. A lot of subbies. This is me. Uncoded Hugo, not coded. I am a fucking unk. Thank you, Yanagibashi. Also one of the OGs for the 14 months. What's up, Yanagibashi? Long time no see, motherfucker. Thank you, Maple Takes, for the 500 bits. Thank you very much, God. Thank you very, very much, God, Maple Takes. Crazy amount of bits, bro. Look, this is how I feel right now. Thank you, Connor. Let's go. This is me before playing Chinese TikToks for you, knowing exactly where it's going to lead. Thank you, devil! This is great. This is straight for Grey Goat. Thank you, Grey Goat. These are the 4 subs, and then this lady. Thank you very much, Grey Goat. This is literally when my girlfriend shows me off in public. This is what I look like, and this is what I feel like. She literally is like, look, this is my boyfriend. He's very ugly and very fat, but he is exceptionally cute. Shakes me, and I'm like, fuck. Holy shit, who recorded your family chat? When Le Wine runs out. Where wine? And I'm like, sorry, did not have enough subs this month. We're drinking straight up moonshine, baby. This is Cynical Chris with all those 5 gifties, fucking really giving it to all those fucking future subbies, bro. Give it. This is me walking in on the stream. Man, I'm going to teach so much. I'm going to teach so hard right now. I'm going to teach them so many fucking things. Ha ha ha. And then I realized that I'm actually the student, and I'm learning from you as much as you're learning from me. That is the beauty of Twitch. And this is knowledge. Nice. Sorry, 2014 cold? What the fuck?
Maybe you could fly my kite, babe. We could be together. You're the one I'm looking for. Oh, maybe you could fly my kite, babe. Maybe you could fly my kite, babe.
Please kill me with a very smooth knife. You wanna see a parallel to a Balkan high school? Wait. Parallel to a Balkan high school. Wait, parallel to a Balkan high school. Wait. Selling pens for cigarettes. Toilets where you smoke cigarettes. Benches where you hide your cigarettes. Place where you make a list of all the people that are gonna get their money together in order to buy cigarettes. Place where you keep your cigarettes. Oh my god, no. This is ads attacking proud subscribers. Tell me, why? And when you do not subscribe, this is you forgetting your true form.
Why, baby, why? Huh? 我不好看吗？
Hey, you weeping Scorpio for the 5 months.
我出名是因为颜值吗？回答我！
Are you ready?
やってみなさい。
I love these. Fucking degenerates. Watch this and you liked it. You like anime? Fucking degenerates. I'm kidding, enjoy your thing. 1 minute and 20 seconds until the hype train ends, and with it, Chinese TikTok. Unless it continues. Right in the feels, bro. Shit. Shit.
Stay awake for too long, don't go to bed. I'll make a cup of coffee.
Thank you, abortion now. Still here, it's fine. Absolutely.
小羊小羊拉臭臭，像颗小豆豆。
What all my friends think I do when I say I do YouTube.
奶牛奶牛拉臭臭，像盘大蛋糕。马儿拉臭臭，像个马铃薯。小狗拉臭臭，
You see, this is what the Chinese do. They think they make you think it's a shitpost, but it's actually opera. You just listen to opera. You're now highly cultured. What you thought you were just being a meme lord? No, no, no. Highly cultured. And yes, I said the word meme lord. People's Police. Thank you very much for the level 6 hype train, the 23 subs and the 640 bits. That is very, very kind of you. Thank you very, very much, Ka. Now, back to depressionnow.com with Noah Samson, and chudwatch.com with H3H3, Destiny, and that fucking fat Indian guy. I will not remember that guy's name. I'm sorry.
Israel's the good guys, so he's not a person we need to take seriously in any of these conversations on what needs to be done. That's the sort of criticism trap here on YouTube. You know, a guy who isn't a part of your movement criticizing your movement. I don't like having to even bring him up.
I want to stay with the Chinese TikToks, me too, but hey, it is a market economy up in this bitch. And the longer they last, the longer the hype train lasts, the longer your Chinese TikToks last.
I honestly just like that white boy's clips. I thought it was funny.
One of the whitest people in the West. Subhuman, Neanderthal, knuckle-dragging, white dipshits.
So I'll look at some more of this stuff in future video responses. I'm going to split them up.
Wait, does Destiny call himself like a Cubano, like I'm actually Latinx? I would love that. I would love that. I would love that. If Destiny was like, I'm Actually, I'm not white. I am a refugee from Cuba. Okay, I'm the most disprivileged boy of all time.
By point.
Latinx for real.
See if we can dive a little deeper into these topics. I think that has potential to be worth it, but we'll see. Today, though, one of the
strongest gusano versus the weakest white man. Oh yeah, why am I doing this to myself?
majority of other email platforms, ProtonMail is end-to-end encrypted with zero-access encryption, meaning that emails from non-ProtonMail accounts are encrypted with your public key before reaching your inbox, which ensures that no one but you can access them. This keeps you totally immune from data breaches and surveillance. Most popular messaging apps offer this kind of end-to-end encryption, but many major big tech email services do not, like Gmail, for example. ProtonMail allows you to create email aliases whenever you sign up for new websites to hide your real email address, which you can easily deactivate if they're ever revealed in data breaches or start receiving spam. They offer other helpful features like email scheduling, tracking link blocking, and inbox cleaning. Switching to ProtonMail is really easy. You can import past emails seamlessly and forward Gmail messages to your new ProtonMail address, or you can start fresh with a clean slate. It's up to you. ProtonMail has over 100 million users and is 100% funded by customer subscriptions, and all services are completely ad-free. They operate out of Switzerland.
I remember using ProtonMail to get into Reddit after I get banned when I was a kid.
Where they benefit from robust privacy laws. Proton got started with a public crowdfunding campaign and is owned by the Proton Foundation, which is a nonprofit dedicated to ensuring privacy and data protection. Sign up for free using my link at proton.me/NoahSamson to protect your privacy and also support the channel. All right, back to the video now. In this Instagram story,
are conditioning us not to skip sponsors in our channel? No, when I came to Twitch, everybody was like, you have to watch the ads because that's ethical react, apparently.
Ethan asks the question, when did I ever support a genocide?
When did we ever back?
I only have one sponsor, and the sponsor is an actual worker-owned company, and the only worker-owned streaming service completely dedicated to making anti-imperialist and anti-capitalist content known as Means TV. You can grab 7 days free trial and 20% discount through the link that is sometimes popping up in my chat. Through that, you would also be supporting me as well, because it's an actual co-op. 50% of the monthly subscriptions go to me, myself, and I as well. Thank you very much.
Back a genocide.
I'm sorry.
When? Like, show me.
I have an answer to that. Let's go over it once again. Ethan Klein was the primary signal booster for the smear campaign against...
Every provider does, though, nearly. No, my friend, this is in perpetuity. Okay, this is in perpetuita. Thank you, Affliction93, for the sub with Prime. Only Means does this, and Only Means has supported, for example, the Palestinian cause from the get-go. No other streaming service has done so, at least not unapologetically.
Against pro-Palestine.
Thank you, Affliction93, for the sub with Prime.
Activists that was orchestrated by a group of openly genocidal Zionists. During the...
I was talking about Norton. Oh, okay, I don't know anything about that.
The active genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. Every point raised in his content nuke video was borrowed directly from Destiny and his community regarding Hassan's alleged terrorism support, his alleged anti-Semitism, and his alleged extremist views.
Hassan uncritically interviewed this kid for about an hour. It was the most brazen display of disgusting terrorist propaganda that I have maybe ever seen in Western media. Okay, fine. He likes Hamas. He watches their propaganda. But he's not going to deny the violent rapes that took place. That is way beyond the pale.
Ethan himself, in this very stream, reveals that he is aware of Destiny's comments that openly endorse the genocide of Palestinians.
The only person he's probably not defaming here would be Destiny because of his comment about, he said, I believe in genocide. He said, I think, and during one conversation, like that the Palestinians should just leave. So if you're talking about defamation, that's like an easy out, right? For legally speaking.
So that's one way to back genocide, is by functionally collaborating with an openly genocidal Zionist who you know is openly genocidal on a video that reached over 3 million people exclusively using arguments and out-of-context clips that were compiled by the community of that openly genocidal Zionist. The other major way that Ethan backed the genocide of Palestinians in Gaza with his video was by spreading atrocity propaganda narratives that the Israeli state, military, and its backers in the West have used as rhetorical justification for their genocidal actions. This backing proceeds precedes Ethan's content nuke, as he was one of the first major content creators to spread the 40 beheaded babies hoax.
They found 40 dead fucking babies at this kibbutz where like tons of people got killed. Now, I don't know if they were beheaded, okay? And some people really care about that detail. So to me, the 40 babies is enough.
I never really thought that I would see and have confirmed pictures of terrorists beheading children.
False claim that he has yet to rescind or apologize for making. In the content nuke, he doubles down with this sort of propagandizing for the state of Israel by spreading the Hamas mass rapes hoax.
Why are you running?
Cited the documentary from Sheryl Sandberg that relied on testimony made under duress in Israeli detainment centers and unverified claims from witnesses.
Earlier this year, former Facebook executive Sheryl Sandberg produced a documentary that was screened at the White House and on Capitol Hill.
Last year, Hamas committed horrific acts of sexual violence. Sheryl, I thank you for all your work to bring to light the horrors of this issue and for your film about what happened on October 7.
The way that Sandberg proved her case, shockingly, was significantly through the use of coerced interrogation videos. The documentary, of course, won praise in the pages of the New York Times and is, to this day, sitting on the White House website. The White House website now says, quote, "Preventing and responding to conflict-related sexual violence is a top priority for President Biden and Vice President Harris. Since October 7th, President Biden, Vice President Harris, and our entire administration have consistently condemned Hamas' horrific sexual violence. On June 17th, the Vice President hosted an event at the White House, which included a panel discussion and remarks by advocates and survivors of CRSV from around the world, and a partial screening of Sheryl Sandberg's documentary, Screams Before Silence, on Hamas's sexual violence on October 7th. Now, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, B'Tselem, and Physicians for Human Rights Israel all rejected the use of hostage interrogation videos in the months after October 7th. And most news outlets chose to reject their use as well, citing the likelihood the confessions were extracted by torture. Sheryl Sandberg, the White House, and Hamas have all gone a different direction.
Now, my point about this propaganda claim seems to have been misconstrued by some viewers of my video. The claim in question is not that rapes occurred, rather that Hamas systematically weaponized sexual violence during the attacks. This was the claim spread by mainstream news outlets like the New York Times and used by the US government and the Israeli government as a pretext for blowing up occupied apartment buildings to target low-level Hamas commanders. The UN report that was released and cited widely by defenders of Israel as evidence that this is true, says the opposite. The mission team was unable to establish the prevalence of sexual violence and concludes that the overall magnitude, scope, and specific attribution of these violence.
Harming civilians is bad. That is why we will support the wholesale mass murder and killing of thousands of civilians. U.S. State Department.
Violations would require a fully fledged investigation. Ethan's citation of the conclusion to this report, point 86, that there are, quote, reasonable grounds to believe that conflict-related sexual violence occurred at several locations, does not at all verify the claims made in his video in the central piece of evidence which he cited for it, which was Sheryl Sandberg's propaganda film.
What happened on October 7th was mass, systematic, planned rape and genital mutilation of women.
Nor in all the places that systematic sexual violence was alleged against Hamas, which it was many, many places, mainstream places. This conclusion also does not contradict anything Hassan has ever said about October 7th. In every clip cited in the video, Hassan is talking about the systematic rapes claim.
The systematized mass rapes that Hamas dealt on October 7th, not a single bit of that has been verified.
The clip that was cited repeatedly by Ethan, what he seemed to think was a smoking gun,
downplaying the violence, specifically the sexual violence, which he's done a lot of.
Doesn't matter if fucking rapes happen on October 7th. Like, that doesn't change the dynamic for me even this much. So that's the other part of this problem that many people can't contend with. Like, the Palestinian resistance is not perfect. They're not like so good. They have magical bullets.
Ethan's presentation of this clip is dishonest, though.
It doesn't even matter. None of this justifies that Palestinians have a right to dignity, a right to emancipation, a right to live fucking free lives, free from this occupation. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if fucking happened on October 7th. Like, that doesn't change the dynamic for me even this much.
Hassan isn't talking about sexual violence in a vacuum. He's talking about it.
To make the point as clear as fucking possible, during the civil rights fight era in the United States, one of the core arguments that were used against giving equal rights to black Americans is what they used to do is take specific cases when sometimes proven, sometimes not, African Americans had committed acts of sexual violence. And they would paint the actions of those particular individuals as something that will become rampant if segregation is to be removed from the equation, and African Americans and whites can start intermingling, interacting without the police state being there to enforce the apartheid, right? That's a direct parallel to what they're doing here. Palestinians are saying we deserve the right to equal representation, to practice all our cultural and religious beliefs, to be treated, I'm overcomplicated, to be treated as equal citizens in front of the law as Israelis are inside of the state. The response to that is, look at this Palestinian that did rape A, B, or C. If we were to allow your integration into our wider society, you guys are just going to run rampant and do this to everybody. The parallel is the same. I just wonder if they would accept the same parallel when talking about African Americans. Probably not.
In relationship with something else. In relationship with the struggle for Palestinian liberation. It's like saying that it doesn't matter if rapes occurred during a slave rebellion. That doesn't change the dynamic that slavery should still be abolished. Which is an entirely uncontroversial statement, if you're against slavery, of course. Some noted that the UN report called for further investigation into these alleged crimes, and that's true. It did. However, further investigations have been repeatedly denied by only one party, and that party is Israel.
Why not put the responsibility and blame the atrocities quite simply on the perpetrators and say it was Hamas who did it?
When I accepted the invitation from the government of Israel, we had a number of meetings and we discussed the parameters and explained clearly the purpose of the mission, which was only for the purpose of gathering, analyzing, and verifying information.
But still, it is pretty clear who did it after talking to survivors and hostages returned, right? It wasn't the Belgians who did it. It's pretty clear.
I understand the frustration of the people of Israel. I mean, I was distressed when I came to Israel because I saw a traumatized nation. So I understand the frustration, but I think it's up to your government to give access, and that's one also of my first recommendation.
Thank you, Katsu Covers, for the 2 months.
Interesting is that Ethan has showed some level of skepticism.
12 months. I apologize deeply. Thank you, Katsu Covers, for the year.
Skepticism for these sorts of allegations before, but only when the victims were Palestinian.
Palestinian females freed from Israeli detention said more than 15 fellow Palestinian women were raped by Israeli interrogators to force them to confess to charges leveled against them and collaborate with the Israeli intelligence. Quote, Israeli investigators and intelligence officers keep videotapes of raping to blackmail the female detainees. So according to, I guess, this website, this doesn't seem like super credible, at least, or it might be credible.
You have an issue with CARE or Islam.net or the...
Well, what is this?
The lack of...
listen, that's a huge claim. 15 Palestinian women were raped.
Mm-hmm.
I was sexually abused and photographed, she said. But, what? I don't know what this is. What is this?
What do you mean?
Is this a source?
You're asking if it's credible.
Yeah. Yes, CARE is credible. I think, at least.
What is
CARE is
There's no source. There's nothing here. Shit. That's a pretty extraordinary claim. Fuck. It's serious to say that the Israeli apparatus is using rape systemically to oppress the Palestinians.
On March 13th, the United Nations...
Holy shit, I have not seen this clip before. Oh my fucking God. I read that report extensively, and Israel shoots itself in the foot all the time with its lies. There are like 2 instances of verifiable and possible SA, and yes, if I had the power, the perpetrators would go to jail, but their narrative needs to just say all Hamas awful evil. Absolutely. No, perfectly put.
Nations released a report called More Than a Human Can Bear, which concluded that it's actually Israel who is guilty of this crime, the use of systematic sexual violence, along with various other gender-related crimes like the deliberate targeting of reproductive healthcare facilities and violence against women and girls, all of which amount to crimes against humanity and acts of genocide. This report is absolutely damning. Everything that the US government, the State of Israel, the New York Times have ever accused Hamas of doing, Israel is guilty of with actual proof. Despite this, the Western media has been silent. In what little coverage the report is receiving, the findings are being downplayed in a repulsive manner. The New York Times, for example, let's just read how they covered it. The Israel is guilty of genocidal mass rape report. The headline reads, UN accuses Israel of targeting reproductive health facilities in Gaza. A report by a UN committee found that Israel has committed genocidal acts intended to prevent births. Israel quickly rejected the findings as biased. Thanks for the heads up on that. Okay, so no mention in the headline or the subheading of the systematic mass rape and sexual violence campaign by Israeli forces. It just groups those in with the genocidal acts there. And then an immediate citation of Israel's defense. Incredible. Let's read on. A United Nations commission on Thursday accused Israel of targeting hospitals and other health facilities in Gaza that provide reproductive services, including an IVF clinic where thousands of embryos were destroyed in what it called an effort to prevent Palestinian births. The report by the UN Commission of Inquiry on the occupied Palestinian territory called that and other actions that cause harm to women and girls, quote, genocidal acts, and accused Israel of punishing Palestinians collectively for the Hamas-led October 7th, 2023 attack that killed 1,200 people. So that's how the New York Times reports mass rape campaigns from Israel. Other actions. Other actions. Which other action?
Because our people are people and yours are not, okay? Our embryos are potential babies, yours are not. Sex-based violence against our people is despicable because our women are people, but against yours it's not because yours are not people. Do I need to make this fucking point any clearer?
Mass rape, weaponized sexual violence, credible evidence to allegations this time? No, you'll have to wait a bit to hear about those. First, the IDF is speaking. Israeli officials have long accused the Rights Council of singling Israel out, arguing that UN officials and committees condemn the country with far greater frequency than it does dictatorships like North Korea. In February, Gideon Sa'ar, the Israeli foreign minister, said Israel would stop participating in the council, accusing it of demonizing Israel. The United Nations is Hamas, the United Nations is anti-Semitic. That's what Israel told us, and we're going to tell you what they told us uncritically because the New York Times. The first time the word rape is used in this article isn't until 15 paragraphs in, and then when it's used, it's immediately followed with reporting that the accused were not ultimately indicted for any sexual offense, and that Israel says it doesn't do that actually, and that they follow the rules. I could scream. These people are fucking disgusting.
She was taken to sedate a man, and she was nude searched over and over again and filmed, and then she was raped twice by Israeli male soldiers, 2 of them at a time, while videotaping her. We have also one testimony of a woman who was also taken. She says she was also raped by an inspection device by a female soldier more than once. They inserted the inspection device in her rectum. We have also one testimony of a woman saying that she was strip searched and they would beat her on her behind and they would humiliate her in front of each other. Most of the women also who were taken from Gaza, West Bank and Jerusalem said they were beaten on their genitals, which has made it to conclude that there must have been a directive that's been given to the Israeli army to treat women in such manner, because in Jerusalem you're treated by completely different law enforcement than in Gaza or in the West Bank. But all these women said they were beaten on their genitals.
And I could just add on about the women who were forcibly disappeared in Gaza. Like I said before, it was usually as they were fleeing south through the safety corridor, they were abducted at the checkpoint. Many were taken to the Zakim detention center and the Negev detention center, and all together in one large hall, forced to strip completely naked and just sit in this hall, the women amongst each other and the men amongst each other. And it's also been reported and known that Israeli civilians are invited to come to this detention center and mock the Palestinian prisoners while they're naked, photograph them, and watch them as if it's a zoo. So that's something that we've seen.
Also, when it comes to checkpoints, like I said, it's where the sexual violence happens and it goes unreported. So we have a testimony of a teenage girl who was made to undress a man because he refused to undress. They made her undress him, even though she's not related to him. She doesn't know who that man is. And while being searched and touched and molested on their breast and on their genitals as well.
The media has largely downplayed this report and its findings, but it does conclude that Israel is guilty of the most prominent accusation made against Hamas on October 7th, which is that it weaponized sexual violence systematically. Israeli security forces do this in a coordinated, intentional manner with the goal of subjugating, humiliating, and collectively punishing the Palestinian population. Will the people in this smear campaign acknowledge the existence of this report? Will they acknowledge that their unverified accusations against Hamas are verified actually by this report against Israel? I personally doubt it, but who knows?
It's serious to say that the Israeli apparatus is using rape systemically to oppress the Palestinians.
The other piece of Zionist propaganda cited by Ethan in his video was his downplaying of the Nakba. He has participated in overt Nakba denial before.
1948, the War of Independence is called in Israel. Others know it as the Arab-Israeli War.
So I just want to note here that Ethan gave this supposed war two names there, but he missed one, the Nakba. And the Nakba is a very relevant and very apt name because the fact of the matter is that when this supposed war happened, the Palestinians had no real organization, no real funding, no really significant armed groups or leadership to protect them to fight back against the Zionist colonists, while the Zionist colonists had for a very long time organized terrorist groups, militias, etc. among them, which were extremely well funded by international organizations that they had formed, which were dedicated to funding and fomenting the Zionist colonization of Palestine. Hence, what Ethan Klein calls a war here actually started out as mass killings and expulsions by an organized military against the people who did not have one. The Nakba, contrary to the narrative of Ethan and Hila here, began before the intervention of the nearby Middle Eastern Arab states. It was a reaction to it, in fact. By the time of the Israeli Declaration of Independence, more than half of the people who were expelled in the Nakba had already been expelled.
After the partition plan to split the Palestine into a part Arab, part Jewish, as many of you probably know, every Arab country around Israel waged a war of annihilation.
Okay, so Ethan left the Nakba out of his narrative here.
Remember that this guy says that he does not do liberal Zionism while very actively doing the definition of liberal Zionism, which is to deny events such as the Nakba even in Israeli curriculum. Like, this is the most mainstream liberal Zionist talking point, right? It didn't happen.
Yours entirely. That is.
But no, that's not genocide apologia for some fucking reason.
Absolutely inexcusable.
Speaking of apologia, we never apologize for our great jihad against advertising here on Yugopnik Twitch. So support us in becoming 100% ad-free by subscribing or gifting to those less privileged than you, and avoid the ad that is going to play in exactly 2 minutes. Fuck that shit. Ain't nobody watching no ad.
It's like leaving the Holocaust out of World War II. It simply cannot be forgiven. It is abhorrent, honestly. It's the only way that his narrative can really hold up here as well.
But he does it again in the content nuke in a different way. He downplays the Nakba in the content nuke by equating it to Jewish expulsion from Muslim countries.
In fact, there was more Jews displaced than Palestinians during the Nakba. 1 million Jews.
This is done with misinformation, so he lies by omission regarding the nature of Jewish immigration to Israel. But even if he hadn't, this is on its face a piece of Zionist propaganda. Because being a refugee does not enshrine upon you some right to steal other people's land and make them refugees. That's what the settlement of Israel was, and any equivocation between that and other factors is a direct rhetorical justification for the crime.
The very premise behind it is obviously flawed, and presenting the partition plan as if it was not clearly a grave injustice is a rhetorical trick to then sort of implant this idea that what Israel did was legitimate. They were just abiding by the plan, apparently, even though they broke every single thing that was stipulated in it, and that it is the fault of the Palestinians for rejecting obviously untenable things like this, rather than just giving up more than half of their country to new arrivals for their own exclusive use. And it's especially ironic that Zionists love to cite the partition plan as somehow legitimizing when they reject, like, literally every other UN prescription or decision, binding or not, ever made on the subject of Israel-Palestine aside from it.
The last main point on Ethan's support of the genocide in Gaza is his effort to delegitimize resistance to that genocide. He spends a good deal of time in his video going after Hezbollah and Ansar Allah, literally calling them the bad guys.
All right, so these guys are clearly the bad guys.
I feel like I already touched on this a bit in this video and the last one, but what struck me about this section was just the brazen lies about these groups, spreading the ridiculous claim that Hezbollah...
No, but it's also like it puts you in a very fucked up position, which obviously if you're just a hypocritical Zionist, you can get over. It puts you in a fucked up position where you have to justify Israel's actions as necessary. So our type of violence is absolutely necessary because of this evil terrorist organization that is operating there and that is brainwashing little babies who will one day also be insane terrorists. That's why we need to stop them. But at the same time, it needs to give the pitch that any sort of violent resistance against the Israeli state is unacceptable because reasons, because ethics, because international law, because it's a magical Jewish land, because X, Y, Z, Epsilon, and all the way to the end of the fucking galaxy. Calling it hypocritical would kind of undermine the point, because it's not just hypocrisy that we're talking about here. It's trying to juggle two things that cannot exist in the same room at the same time. And the only way you can talk about these things when it comes to interstate actions or inter-ethnic actions, etc., is if you genuinely do inherently, at the end of the day, if you don't want to be a massive hypocrite, as I said previously, because that would be, understating the point, you have to genuinely completely dehumanize the other category, right? Our violent acts against them are necessary because of what? You have to believe in their inherent barbarity and their inherent inability to be reasoned with. And you have to believe in your own people's inherent ability to be reasoned with when you say that any violent actions taken against us are unacceptable because you can just sit at a table and talk to us. The Arab cannot understand conversation. We can. Therefore, violence against us is not okay because we are de facto human. And violence can be used against them because they are de facto dogs to be whipped into submission or completely removed from the playing field as a whole. So again, it puts you in a very shitty situation out of which you either come out as an anti-Zionist because you understand that it's absolutely insane to be making one argument to one people or the other, okay? That's one option you have. And the second option is to fully dedicate yourself to fully internalizing the dehumanization of the other category of people, right? That's it.
Hezbollah is responsible for...
Basically what I'm saying is you just have to be inherent, you have to have a lot of internalized bigotry, and sometimes not just internalized, but very open bigotry towards the so-called other in order to pursue this sort of logic, and not, be subsumed by the irrationality of it.
For the entirety of the death toll of the Syrian civil war, while also changing all of those deaths, which included combatants, to civilians, and accusing them of genocide.
They participated in the slaughter of...
Hugo, I'm late to the stream. What are we talking about? We're talking about rat fuck idiots supporting mass murder, my friend. Yes, rat fuckers.
Over 500,000 Syrian civilians. And they killed hundreds of thousands of civilians in what can only be described as a genocide.
No one does this. I don't know where this came from, but it's just legitimately a bizarre claim to make. Or his false claims about the Houthis, that the hostages taken from the Galaxy leader had not been seen or heard.
The humanization also cuts in both directions. Their arrogance leaves them wide open to having their own bullshit turned on them one day, not because of others' ideology, but their own. fully. One could even make the argument that the reason the so-called Jewish state is so fervent in their dehumanization of the other is because of the generational trauma left over from the Holocaust, right? And instead of learning the lessons of dehumanization, always bad because it was used on our people, they simply want to become the boot that steps and not the face that is stepped on. And that unfortunately will most likely in the long term, as you beautifully put, create a sense of we either crush or we will be crushed in the general Palestinian psyche at some point as well. That's the fucked up thing with this sort of circle of systematic violence. It does not tend to, unfortunately, at least in modern history, resolve its own contradictions. It tends to lead to, there's a reason why we call it a cycle of violence, to the snake eating its own ass, right? We are dehumanized. We are treated like absolute garbage. We do not want to be treated like absolute garbage again. That's why we will allow ourselves to fully dehumanize the other, to make the other into garbage. It's very fucked up, and there's plenty of cases where this happened. People that gets completely fucking mass murdered and tortured, then gets to be the one with an upper hand in the balance of power, proceeds to dehumanize the enemy, who up until that point dehumanizes them and completely removes them from existence sometimes even. I said the thing, Lesnake eating its own asse. Seaman is going to say the thing in 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Unfortunately, an ad will play. Jeff Bezos likes us to be subsumed in el consumerismo. So, if you would like to stay away from that and support this ex-ad guy in his great jihad against advertising, please do consider becoming a sub for $6 a month for free through Prime or by gifting to those less privileged than you, and avoid the ad that's playing in exactly 4 minutes at the top of the ad break. Thank you very, very much.
Heard from since the genocide began.
I'd like to remind everybody that the crew that's kidnapped in this video has been missing for over a year now with zero updates on their health.
I genuinely think that you're right, Hugo. I suggest everyone reads Man's Search for Meaning. It was by a Jewish doctor who lived and somehow survived the camps. It's a very good book, I agree. He talks about certain victims who became, as he says, unbearable victims. They acted as if they could do anything horrific because of their own suffering. Exactly. I mean, come on, let's be fucking honest here. Let's be honest here. That's the main ideological, not the main, but one of the strongest ideological pitches of the Israeli state that a lot of people kind of even sometimes relate to. It's the pitch that it's a people that were bullied that now deserve to bully, but that is never, ever an acceptable answer, because at the end of the day, you want less bullies, right? You don't want to switch who's doing the bullying. That is the mentality of a reactionary child, right? And it worked because it was like, look at these people and how much they've suffered. Now they get to step. But no, we must refuse that. That is unmaterialist. That is new feelings, bro. That is pure new feelings. That is revenge fantasy psychopathy. And it's additionally stupid because the revenge fantasy is almost never directed to the perpetrators of the original crime. Like, Israelis are not colonizing fucking Germany, bro. Okay? It's directed to somebody completely unrelated to the situation, to the original situation. That's the modern Palestinian people in general. I mean, are we all supposed to go and like stab the first fucking Mongolian we see because probably one of your fucking ancestors got super fucked up by a Mongolian? Like, the fuck? It's just brain broken. It's reactionary. It's literally the argument under which, for example, the Nazi banner was flown. We were humiliated and destroyed. We will never be humiliated and destroyed again. So we must be the strongest. It's literally the we was shit.
Whereabouts or anything. That lines up with leftist values.
Eye for an eye mentality, exactly. But sometimes not even directed at the eye of the person who did this to you, but like their distant cousin that had nothing to do with it, or sometimes even a completely different person, because now you've been so PTSD'd out of your fucking mind that you see a potential threat in everybody around you.
That's not true. They were confirmed to be in good health by visits from humanitarian organizations, or just lying about the nature of their attacks, as if the Houthis are attacking these ships for any reason other than what they're doing it for, which is to stop Israel's genocide.
The Houthis have been extremely explicit and repeat on an almost daily basis. Their attacks on ships in the Red Sea will stop as soon as the Gaza war ends and humanitarian and other supplies are allowed into Gaza, and therefore the Palestinians will no longer be under the threat and the horrors that you've earlier described and that most of us have seen on our screens for many, many weeks. The important thing is that although the US and the UK claim that
You hope everything is going all right. Eco will be dearly missed. Yes, Eco will be dearly missed. If you would like to support the Palestinian cause in her name, you have a pinned link in the chat. Thank you.
they're only defending free movement in the Red Sea and refuse to accept any connection between this and the war in Gaza. For the Houthis, it's absolutely straightforward and explicit that, number one, they're only targeting ships that have any connection with Israel, whether they're going to Israel, coming from Israel, delivering stuff owned by Israelis or whatever, any connection whatever. And that other ships are not targeted, except, of course, now, since the US and UK strikes have started, they are also targeting US and UK ships.
Also evident in the fact that during the ceasefire, quote-unquote ceasefire, that Israel violated over 1,000 times, the Houthis stopped the attack.
The part I hate the most, is Israel subsuming the mantle of Judaism and claiming Jewish supremacy that actively increases anti-Semitic sentiment worldwide, just bolsters Nazis and other places. Absolutely. This is the case of almost any reactionary movement of any ethnic or religious background. It is using cultural belonging, religious belief, sense of self, not as a kind of call to bettering said group or category or whatever you want to call it, but as a means to excuse away certain types of behavior. Right?
And they only started them up again when Israel started completely starving out the Gaza Strip, fully restricting aid.
Like Nazi Germany represents all Germans. Fascist Italy represents all Italians. ISIS represents all Muslims. Slobodan Milosevic represents all Serbs. Right? That is what the reactionary does. He does not ask. He claims. Israel claims to represent all Jews. Did it ask all Jews? Of course fucking not. The Nazi Party claims it represents. It knows better. The Israeli state says that it knows what is best for all Jews. The Nazi Party says that it knows better than all Germans what is better for all Germans. That's fascism at its crux. It does not unite by preaching an idea and then allowing people to come into the fold. It draws the border of what the fold is. it draws itself around insecurities, around different types of bigotry, around stereotypes, around fears. It does not call you to join them. It simply comes to you, grabs you by the shoulder, and tells you you're one of us. And these guys want to fuck you up. So with us, we're going to fuck them up first. It's not an inspirational movement, ever. It is one that is applied. And that's why it's immaterial.
And in defiance of the starvation blockade, the U.S. and the South
doesn't answer any actual questions. It poses new ones that weren't questions in the first place, and then pretends to answer them for you. Okay? You're not a real Jew. You're not a real German. Unless you agree on how we are answering the very questions that we coined.
Saudis started bombing in Yemen and killing children. So if you want to stop Israel from killing children, the U.S. will kill your children. That's basically the conclusion of that sequence of events. It bears repeating here, Hezbollah and Ansar Allah are the only groups in the world that have provided aid to the Palestinian resistance against Israel's genocide. That's a fact. Citing their status as U.S.-designated terrorist groups or historical examples of their violations of international law does not change.
Oh, yes, very commonly known. Every single organization that has been deemed a terrorist organization by the United States has always ended up has never ended up being reintroduced into the mainstream after we all woke up from an insane stupor. But wait, it's not always when we all woke up from the insane stupor of believing American propaganda. A lot of people recognize it very early on.
Wonderful.
Same case like with now, same case with most anti-apartheid South African movements being also classified as terrorist organizations. But as I said earlier in the stream, back then you did not have as much access to information as we do now in order to call bullshit. Now we do have enough access, so you not calling bullshit is inexcusable. And your children will fucking hate you, and rightfully so. Thank you, Will Tokes, for the 14 months, my friend. You've not been in here much lately, hoping our great Yugo has been doing okay. Yes, thank you, my friend. Thank you very much.
Change that fact. If we acknowledge
welcome back, brother, welcome back.
The fact that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza, which Ethan, or at least his fans, seem to believe he does, then it must also be recognized that the international community is legally obligated under the Genocide Convention to employ all means necessary to prevent said genocide. When it comes to Israel's genocide in Gaza, these terrorists here are the only ones following the law, the only ones operating with any sort of moral compass.
All states are...
Yes, but my friend, moral compasses are defined by the powerful. So if you're not in the clique of the powerful, whatever you do is de facto immoral.
Obliged to do everything in their power.
Freedom fighters for me, terrorists for thee.
To stop this genocide from continuing in Palestine.
But when it's put into law, it's additionally dangerous, obviously, because then you can be what? You can be imprisoned for supporting organizations that are titled by us as terrorist organizations.
It's actually done that, South Africa, when they brought Israel to trial in the International Court of Justice for genocide. I've said arguably Hezbollah, it's not a state, but it is a significant actor in that state because it...
Al-Qaeda, yes, PM3Ox being like the most cliche, but arguably the best example of this. Freedom fighters one day, unhinged evil Muslim terrorists the other.
Has engaged Israeli forces militarily, initially in territory illegally occupied by Israeli forces, the Shabab farms in South Lebanon, to draw Israeli assets away from the genocide.
And usually the counter-argument to this is, okay, that's not true. The people we designate as terrorists are those that act as terrorists, aka utilize particular military tactics that hyper-target civilian infrastructure, etc., and that's the ones that we call terrorists. It's not just because they're the enemies of our state, which is a great argument if you were designating the Israeli state as a terrorist state because it pretty much checks every single one of those boxes, but you don't because you don't actually believe in that definition, bruv. Like, it's... The definition would be fine and dandy, like, oh, 9/11, hit, civilian building, boom, all them dead. That is why they're terrorists, because they hit a civilian building and all those people inside died, right? But Israel's been doing that every fucking week for the past year and a half, too. Every fucking day in certain points. But they're not terrorists. Why? Because they're freedom fighters. But why? You tell me, Chad.
And the third one that you mentioned very significantly, Yemen, under Houthi control. The Houthis, Ansar Allah, they announced in response to Israel's genocide in Palestine that it would block shipping into the Red Sea that was headed to resupply the Israeli regime as long as it continues the siege and the genocide in Gaza. And it's been using this choke point at the head of the Red Sea called Bab al-Mandeb, which means the Gate of Tears, in this narrow strait between Yemen and Djibouti at the opening of the Red Sea. And they started this targeted partial blockade in November of 2023 when the genocide started by boarding an Israeli ship, and then they sustained the blockade until the announcement of the most recent so-called ceasefire. At that moment, the Houthis lifted the blockade while the ceasefire was going on, demonstrating that they were doing this as a humanitarian intervention in order to meet what the International Court of Justice has said is the responsibility of all states, and what the General Assembly in its implementing resolution has confirmed is the responsibility of all states to do everything in their power to stop the genocide and the siege that was being imposed on Gaza. You know, some ships avoided the blockade by sailing around Africa, but most of them couldn't. So the major shipping companies stopped sailing to the Red Sea, and the port of Eilat in Israel went bankrupt, which means that this blockade was working. It was denying the Israeli regime many of the goods that it needed to continue the siege and to continue the genocide in Palestine.
The United States, aka the terrorist designators, meanwhile, are the ones doing the terrorism. They are aiding and abetting a genocide with billions of dollars in arms shipments to Israel. The liberal framework of thought is only able to conceptualize actors in conflict as being good and bad. Israel's far-right government is bad, Ethan says, but so are terrorists. Genocide is bad. I don't agree with genocide, of course, but hijacking ships is bad too. It's against the law, which is bad. Everybody should just stop doing bad stuff. Okay, well, Israel's not stopping. They're not stopping the genocide. The US is not stopping its arms shipments so that Israel can continue that genocide. That is the material reality. If you actually want that genocide to stop, you need to do something material to try to stop it. And so far in the world, the only people doing that outside of Gaza militarily are Hezbollah and Ansar Allah. If you spend all your time attacking these...
Genocide is bad, but people actively fighting genocide is also bad. I believe in nothing. Oh, wait, no. In that case, you're not an enlightened centrist. You believe in genocide. If there's somebody is beating the shit out of a person in front of you, and you stand there and you're like, maybe nobody should... No, wait, bad allegory. If somebody's beating the shit out of a person in front of you and then somebody steps in and tries to save that person, if you say that those two are the same, you actually support the person beating the other one, not the one trying to stop the fucking beat. Why do I don't need to explain this. What the fuck?
These groups, while sitting on the sidelines, idealistically opining on what forms of resistance are acceptable to you, then you're supporting the genocide. Full stop. There's something to be said here about the basic attack on free speech.
Or that person fights back against the person who started the beating. Oh, don't even get me started on that one. Of course.
Each evident in this campaign. They want to deplatform Hassan for interviewing a Yemeni teenager on the grounds that they believe this teenager is a member of Ansar Allah or the Houthis, a US designated terrorist group, and that Hassan didn't just interview him, but he promoted him. Glazing is the legal term they use, I believe.
It started with Hassan platforming Houthi terrorists. This kid is a rampant anti-Semite and a violent Houthi terrorist.
But he literally had a terrorist on a stream. This wasn't really an interview, it was like a glorified promotion reel.
Glorifying a terrorist live on stream. This man does not critically apply any form of journalism.
Hassan did not ask him one critical...
Critically apply any form
of journalism. He does not critically apply any form of journalism. Don't you guys know? This is not very good journalism.
Fucking hate nerds, bro.
Question. In fact, the opposite.
This type, of course. Oh my fucking god.
It was a complete puff piece where he sucked him off, elevated him, was uncritical.
None of this is true. Ethan provided no credible evidence to the claim that Rashid al-Haddad, or Tim Houthi Chalamet, the nickname of the Yemeni teenager, is a member of Ansar Allah. And in their interview, Hassan asked multiple questions that were critical of Rashid.
I don't know if he can answer this or not, but as far as the Ansar Allah militancy goes, like as far as the standing military goes, like I don't know if he is allowed to speak on this. I don't know if he's like actually a part of the groups at all or just like simply a TikToker. You know what I mean? I don't know how to ask that in the best way possible though.
طيب يعني بقول لك يعني أنا يمني يعني كيمني يعني أنا واقف إلى جانب فلسطين. His answer is a Yemeni who stands with Palestine.
In America, some of the like leading groups that are pro-Palestine are led by Jewish people who are anti-Israel. How does he feel about that?
والله يعني صراحة أي واحد يدعم فلسطين إحنا معه. He's saying anyone that supports Palestine, we're with.
Hell yeah.
But even if that hadn't happened, and even if he were a member of the Houthis, calling for deplatforming on those grounds is a basic violation of free speech.
It was very frustrating to see that because like there is journalistic value to interviewing every single person. People have interviewed Osama bin Laden. I was trying to make him comfortable in that conversation because I didn't know if he was a Houthi or not. I thought he might be, right? So I wanted...
Yeah, the way I once twice interviewed Baden Penada, the left's literal Osama bin Laden.
To make him as comfortable as possible. And then, yes, the conversation trajectory probably would have changed a little bit if he had said he was a Houthi. He said he was not. And I was inclined to believe him. There's no reason for me not to. But even in that process, they still asked him about like his thoughts on Jewish people, anti-Semitism and the like.
They wanted to deplatform Hassan for watching an Ansar Allah music video on his...
I love Hassan, but you don't have to ask him about... I'm not even going to say it. Thank you, Gamer Chat Squad Official. Thank you very much for the 5 community subs. Everybody say thank you, Gamer Chat Squad Official. I love and hate your name at the same time. Thank you for the 45 gift subs. You're truly, truly one of us.
Stream, they claim that this is terrorist promotion, watching unfettered terrorist propaganda, as they claimed. But the question here is...
Look, people in weird clothes that I do not see around my country, wearing those clothes and dancing in circle with guns. Very strange, very scary, very strange, very terrorism.
What level of denunciation and condemnation would be required during Hassan's viewing of that video in order for it to clear the bar of a valid viewing of a piece of political media? The mere existence on the screen of a video from the Houthis is enough to trigger that post-9/11 war on terror response in the American viewer, to the point that they're willing to just call for his banning for making such violent and evil threats like Yemeni people are a musical people, or these songs function as an act of resistance against the US-backed Saudi genocide.
Instead of terrorist propaganda, let's call it musicals.
They do musicals.
Instead of violent jihadists, let's call them musically talented people.
They're very musical people.
It is precisely this line of argument that the US government and the Trump administration have taken when it comes to the illegal kidnapping and detention of Palestinian activist Mahmoud Khalil. He is not charged with crime. He is being silenced for his speech on the grounds that it constitutes terrorist promotion. As this sort of terrorism is a threat to US national security, according to the US, this is grounds for detention. The terrorism in question here is, of course, advocating against a genocide. Whether it's the US-backed genocide of Palestinians in Gaza or the US-backed genocide of the people of Yemen through its crippling blockade that has resulted in the starvation of hundreds of thousands of people, or its indiscriminate bombing campaign that has killed tens of thousands more, in both of these places, the justification is fighting terrorism. When the US-backed Saudi coalition blows up a school bus full of school children, the justification they use is that they were targeting the Houthis.
It was an attack which drew international condemnation and left the parents of 40 children crying over their graves. Initially, the Saudi-led coalition claimed the attack was a justified military operation. It was targeting Houthi leaders. Now, it says, it made mistakes.
When Israel blows up a hospital, lighting medical tents on fire and burning Palestinians alive, the justification they're using is fighting terrorism. It's all part of this same system, and whether on the ground in Gaza or on the airwaves of media coverage of it, the premise itself of terrorism needs to be challenged. Which is why when you release a video for 3 million people attacking resistance to genocide as terrorism,
terrorist groups, terrorist propaganda, terrorism, terrorist organization,
you're sort of doing that same thing. The last point for today's video I want to bring up is the concept of deflecting criticism. Ethan implies that my decision to criticize him or character assassinate and horrifically lie about him, as he put it, is tied to Hassan being my idol, and my idol being criticized compelled me to defend him, seemingly against logic or reason or something like that. This was an accusation shared by many of the viewers of my video. Hassan Glazer detected.
Yes, people don't simply want to stand against genocide and agitate against it. No, they are really obsessed with a social media influencer. That's why they do this, okay? But what would that make Ethan? Someone who is willing to support mass murder and genocide only because he hates a social media influencer. Holy fuck, who's worse here?
Bruh.
Opinion rejected. Now, what's interesting is that this response simply reinforces my point about the Hassan bad online media ecosystem. To these people, responding to my arguments on their own merit is unnecessary because they can simply write me off as de facto wrong because I am defending Hassan, who is de facto wrong because Hassan bad. It is not the actual political issue I am
No, you guys are the weird ones because you are ready to undertake some of the most controversial opinions, period, today, which is to support a genocide, because Hassan bad, okay? Hassan isn't living in the minds of people who are utilizing their platforms to agitate for Palestinian liberation. They're just agitating for Palestinian liberation. And most of you would not care about Palestinian liberation. Hell, the main reason, but ironically, the main reason you are fighting Palestinian liberation is because it's the opposite of what Hassan stands for. So who's in a cult here? Who's in a cult?
Defending him on, that they're able to challenge. The issue, of course, being opposing Israel's genocide in Gaza and informing viewers about the resistance to that genocide without screaming, "I condemn terrorism," into the microphone for every second of that coverage. No, it's not that. It is the mere fact that Hassan is on the screen while I make these points that seems to trigger this response. The response of completely ignoring the valid connections between Hassan's arguments and my own. It's cowardly, but expected, and only serves to strengthen my resolve in the notion that these people are not serious in their politics and therefore should not be taken seriously. The other major example of this sort of deflection is in regards to my citation of the YouTuber Bad Empanada. I can't tell you how many comments I received from people that decided to throw out all of the points made in my hour-long video in their entirety because at the start of it, I cited Bad Empanada.
It's incredible how Noah went from his goofy YouTube videos to wholeheartedly fighting against propaganda. He's been fighting against propaganda for quite a while now, at least like 2 years. He's been dedicating to the cause hard.
Empanada's prior responses. None of these comments
started back with the Destiny Vosh era, etc., etc.
And I mean, not a single one out of the seemingly thousands of them took the time to respond to, let alone debunk Bad Empanada's points about Ethan's video. So far, I haven't seen anyone do that.
I want to suck Hassan's dick so bad.
Or even try. Regardless of how you feel about Bad Empanada or what you think of his posts online, the facts are the facts. If you can't dispute them, then just say that and move on. Embrace your ignorance and your blind fandom, because at least then you're not being a coward. You're just saying, yeah, I'm dumb. I'm a dumb idiot baby. I don't like Bad Empanada because he's mean to my favorite streamer. Okay, that's fine. That's the truth. There's a claim going around that Hassan being pro-Palestine does not make him immune from criticism.
One of the most cynical methods Hassan deploys to sidestep any criticism is to deflect to the ongoing genocide in Gaza. I've seen him do this so many times. He frames it like you are selfish for trying to criticize him, no matter what the reason is, because there's a genocide happening, man. How can you criticize me at a time like this?
In one way, this is true. Like, let's say Hassan walked up to you and stepped on your foot and you said, "Hey man, don't do that, ow." And he responded by saying, You're going to criticize me while there's an active genocide going on right now? Seriously? That would be an example of an invalid deflection from criticism. However, when the criticism in question is related to Hassan's support of Palestinians and advocacy against their genocide, and the criticism is coming from people who do not support that cause, then yes, it makes him immune. He doesn't have to take that criticism seriously because it's coming in bad faith from people who are not allies to his cause. If criticism is coming from parties who have no stake in or solidarity with the mission of Palestinian liberation, these criticisms are irrelevant. They are beneath consideration.
Exactly. Beautifully put. Thank you, Polaris, and thank you, Mira Nuren, for your subs. Thank you very much.
The people who levy these criticisms do not talk about politics until it's time to make a Hassan bad video. This is the case with all of the slop tubers.
Yeah, what I previously said. They're the obsessive compulsive ones that are actively projecting at people who are utilizing their platforms in order to agitate for Palestinian liberation as people that are only doing it because Hassan is doing it.
Who shared the smear campaign. Ethan here might argue
the only reason you are dehumanizing a whole fucking people is because Hassan is doing the opposite. Like,
that he does have a stake in the pro-Palestine.
It's like the Spider-Man meme where the Spider-Man are just pointing at each other. No you, no you, no you.
Movement, as he has referred to himself as a stalwart ally to this cause.
I've been a stalwart supporter of the Palestinian cause for many years.
This raises some questions, to my mind, namely, how? What did he do to be able to bestow upon himself the label of stalwart ally? Calling yourself an ally is already, what are you doing? Yeah, but in this case, especially, what are you do? What did you do? What did he do? He donated to a fundraiser. Okay. But what if I told you that this donation was a one-time donation of what is likely less than 1% of his yearly income to a fundraiser that Hassan ran, and that this was followed by total silence on Gaza over the course of the genocide until it was time to attack Hassan with smears that originate from genocidal Zionists. And then in order to justify these actions, he would hold that donation of what is likely 1% of his yearly income over
far less, bro. Come on, what we doing here, dude? Far less.
People's heads.
I've donated $6,500 to a Palestinian charity after the war started.
Hey, Ethan Klein, thank you for the dono. Ethan Klein gave $6,500. My goat.
And when I say silence, I do mean that. A search through every episode of the H3 podcast, which is Ethan's most significant form of content creation in the span between October 7th of 2023 and the release date of his content nuke, you can count the number of times Gaza is mentioned on one hand. Most of the time, it's not even brought up by Ethan. It's brought up by his producers, and then when they bring it up, barely a breath is spent on the topic. I'm not interested in handing out or revoking allyship badges, but I do think if someone is using that label on themselves while actively working against the cause, this needs to be exposed and understood so that we can stop including them in the conversation. I realize that for those of you who are already aware of how he's doing this, I'm just doing that now by talking about him, and you're welcome to criticize me for that. That's who I'm willing to listen to criticism from, people that actually care about this issue. But I do think there are a good amount of people, in his audience especially, that just can't really see what he's doing. People who might otherwise be allies to the cause are being misdirected into liberal Zionism. And I do think that's worth exploring, at least for a certain amount of time. Now, while all of this vitally important influencer discourse was going on, somewhere else in the world, there were other developments. On March 17th, Israel carpet-bombed sleeping Palestinians in Gaza at 2 a.m. in one of the most bloody massacres since the genocidal onslaught began 17 months ago. Over 400 Palestinians are confirmed to have been killed by this act of Israeli terrorism, and over 1,000 more injured. They killed more children in a single day than in any day in Israel's history. This came after 17 straight days of a complete siege on any humanitarian aid from entering Gaza. They had already been breaking the ceasefire repeatedly over 1,000 times, something which the US media continually whitewashed, but this attack was Israel's formal unilateral destruction of the ceasefire, slaughtering hundreds of starving children in their sleep. This record-breaking child-killing event was celebrated in Israeli Telegram channels with hundreds of thousands of members. In response to a video of a Palestinian girl mourning her mother that was slain by Israel, the Israelis wrote, "Cry, you whore, a whore, 1,000 whores. Cry as long as you can until we get to you too and eliminate you together with your ugly girl." To a video of a child in Gaza collecting his parents' remains, someone replied, "A young piglet vigorously collects hot and fresh litter to break the fast." The very next day after this massacre, Israel blew up a cancer hospital, the Turkish Friendship Hospital, the only hospital in Gaza specializing in treating cancer patients. They just blew the entire building up. It's rubble now. The IDF said that the hospital was a Hamas compound, but it was actually an IDF compound. They raided it at the start of the genocide, kicked everyone out, and have been using it as a military base for the past 16 months. If we're gonna make this about good and bad, generally speaking, the people blowing up cancer hospitals are not the good guys. So if this is what's gone on in the first 3 days of Israel's full breaking of the ceasefire, why am I, instead of talking about that, talking about what some idiot Zionist influencer thinks? And there's a few reasons, but first, look, the last time I framed a video about Gaza around a YouTube drama,
Yes, very smart.
it got over 700,000 views.
Really
That's
good.
700,000 people that came in expecting me to talk shit about a YouTuber and left with a video that was mostly about Gaza. But when I released a video the following week with an explicitly political topic, media coverage of Israel's ceasefire violations, it barely broke 100,000 views. My perspective right now is that over everything else, we need reach. We need people to know about what Israel is doing, people that don't already know, or at least aren't seeing updates on Israel's genocide, which is a lot of people. The media is not covering it. They weren't covering it a lot before, but over the past 17 months, that coverage has dwindled down to almost nothing. And as we've seen, the majority of it is just straight up manufacturing consent. This includes that record-breaking child-killing massacre from Israel. How many of you heard about that, described in those terms, the terms of what actually happened and not just another new, quote, Israeli Gaza offensive with some catastrophic record-breaking death toll that doesn't even make it into the headline? The best
They manufacture consent for slaughter, and that's why it's important to call them out at times. I completely agree. But more importantly, while they are manufacturing consent for slaughter, we can use them and their completely unhinged behavior to manufacture consent against slaughter, right? As simple as that.
way, I think, to get more people to know about this stuff is by using the algorithm for what it's meant to be used, which is views. And in this case, what that looks like is farming drama. I could be wrong about this approach, and if you think there's better ways to go about this, then feel free to let me know in the comments. I've been thinking about lately doing something like scaling up and running the channel as a platform, but a non-profit, so that I can just cover more things more consistently and not have to choose between, you know, a US-backed child massacre and Ethan Klein. But until then, it's going to be a bit of a mixed bag. Regardless, it doesn't matter what you think of these creators. It's not about them. It's not about anyone being good or bad or what your YouTube subscription feed says about your morals. It's about a genocide that's happening right now, that's unfolding in front of our eyes, and that most of our countries are actively supporting. If these creators are giving people rhetoric to support the genocide that's happening, then we need to talk about that. That's something we need to discuss, especially if that person is claiming to be an ally to the cause. And if other creators are fighting against it, then that's worth talking about too. If they're providing historical analysis and breaking down propaganda that's being used for the genocide, or giving an honest voice to its resistance, then that content is important and should be shared and supported regardless of how you feel about the individuals involved. Unfortunately, we're sort of stuck in a media ecosystem that cares far more about influencer drama
and personalities
than it does about Palestinian lives. Part of the effort here is an attempt to steer that media ecosystem and the consumers existing inside of it towards being more aware of their plight, towards caring about it, and hopefully doing something to try and stop it. People living in the West have the most power over anyone else in the world to stop the genocide. We are living in the belly of the beast. We have direct geographical, physical access to the politicians, the propagandists, the weapons companies, and the supply chains that are facilitating this genocide. Protesting is great. We should keep doing that. But also, you know, I feel like we have to be honest with ourselves. 17 months in, and what is protesting actually accomplished? Raising awareness, sure. Divestment, yeah, in some places. But really, politically, materially, nothing. Israel just killed the most children in its history in a single night with total impunity, with a deafening silence among the Western media. If we want this genocide to stop, it's time to escalate. That's all I'm saying. So anyways, yes, I will keep using influencer drama to grab your heads and slam them against the screen to show you what Israel is doing. And if you don't like that, tell your favorite influencers to stop using their massive platforms to back a genocide. Tell them to stop spreading genocide.
But also respectfully, Tell your favorite influencers that paint themselves as progressive, socialist, anarchist, anti-capitalist, etc., who have not spoken up about the Palestinian plight to also do so. There is no fucking excuse left. Absolutely none. So yes, absolutely massacre verbally, of course, in the marketplace of ideas. All the fucking hogs and conservatives and Zionists, etc., but also call out some of your favorite progressive creators for not having done jack fucking shit on this. Or maybe stop fucking listening to them respectfully, because if they haven't done anything up until this point, they're kind of almost exclusively in it for the money. Let's be fucking honest. They're too afraid of potentially losing the platform, which means that not losing the platform. They're not going to lose the platform. They're too obsessed about potentially lowering how much exposure they're getting per video, because it's definitely not going to get as many views than if they cover some completely different topic, which should tell you that they're more in it for the popularity contest and for the money than they are in it in order to contribute to something actually meaningful.
Genocidal propaganda, lying about the resistance to it, and silencing and deplatforming at
losing on their big tent strategy. That would apply to a lot of things, but not this. You do not want a big tent with genocide supporters.
Advocates against the genocide. Do that, and then I'll leave you all to your slop. It's very simple. Okay, that's all for today's video. Thanks for watching. I've linked some fundraisers below. Support them if you can. Free Palestine. Goodbye.
My name is Noah, you fucking legend. Thank you very much, Noah. Absolute fucking G. Absolute fucking G. Now, before we move in, please, everybody go subscribe to Noah. If you haven't, what the fuck are you doing? Go and subscribe. Too many cowards afraid of having a political opinion. Yeah, but I'm not even talking about the political opinion people, like the non-political opinion havers. I'm talking about channels that are exceptionally political, yet that they have not released a single fucking thing on Palestine. Like, that's ridiculous. I'm sorry, that is ridiculous. If there needs to be somebody who calls you out on that fucking bullshit, it can be me. I don't know. I'm fucking irrelevant. But still. Holy shit. Now, don't do name call-outs. I'm talking about in general. And everybody has the ability to do so and completely change my mind. Okay? Now, a small palate cleanser, Wow Mao video. And then we'll talk about U.S. neo-Nazi groups and how they function straight from the mouth of the belly of the beast from ex-neo-Nazi member. I think that would be very interesting to learn about their actual logistics, how they get their money, how they do their paramilitary organization, what long-term plans are for some of the most radical right-wing organizations in the country, the relationship to the feds, etc., etc. I think it's going to be based. But before we do that, Wow Mao was a civilization and excuse to get drunk. And to an extent, no, not to an extent, full-heartedly, absolutely yes.
And Torres Strait Islanders are advised that this video contains images and voices of people who have died.
I haven't drunk beer in 3 days. It's not good. It's not good because we all need alcohol. You know this, obviously. You watch my videos, but do you truly fathom its weight?
The two masked OGs looking at each other, incredible. I might be working on a video with Wow Mao, a Wow Mao collab. I reached out and was like, there's no way he agrees. And he agreed. It's an unhinged idea. But one, obviously, that should have a decent message behind it. But when you see the title, it's going to be bad, but it's going to be good. Alcohol theme video, not at all. Bad words themed video. Very, very, very bad words.
You understand how crucial
worse words, okay?
Alcohol is? Alcohol is the most important thing ever.
Talk about the words that we say. This is a slur tier list. No. But I'll just say you're onto something. Not a tier list. But you might be onto something. It's going to be a history video. Thank you, Gamer Chat Squad, for the sub for 4 months. You fucking G. Thank you very much. Be like Gamer Chat Squad and subscribe in order to support my unhinged future projects together with people like Wow Mao. And as a little bonus, avoid the ads that play at the top of the hour. Like the one that is going to definitely play in the next 4 minutes, because we're definitely not an ad-free channel already.
And I mean it. Without alcohol, we are nothing.
Part 1. Alcohol as the cause of
civilization. It's not just cities, it's not just laws, it's not even about people. Civilization is a 10,000-year-old scheme to get us to drink alcohol. And that's the truth. How did we come by civilization?
But also sometimes to stop us from drinking alcohol too much. And even if a whole civilizational project is directed at stopping us from drinking alcohol, doesn't it also say a lot about alcohol? The same way, for example, minimalism tries to tell you, you should buy less stuff. That way, you're not going to be constantly obsessed with stuff. But minimalism de facto leads you to arguably obsessing about stuff even more than before. You're just now obsessing with not having it. But stuff is constantly in your brain. Less stuff, less stuff, less stuff. Arguably as toxic as stuff. You must elevate yourself past stuff. You must elevate yourself past anti-alcohol or alcohol. You must become ethanol yourself.
Civilization. Through cities. How did
It's pure ideology.
We come by cities because we settled. Why did we settle? Because we farmed. And why did we farm? For food? Gilgamesh, the tyrant king of Uruk, whose terror reigned.
I mean, in the beginning, it was food. And then we started having a lot of food. And some of that food would go a little bit bad. But when it would go a little bit bad, it would give us an aroma, a smell, urging us to try it. Why not try it? Why not once? What's the worst thing that can happen? We die? I mean, it's 10,000 BC. Life already sucks. I might as well die. And then we take a sip from that big batch of fermented grape. And then we look at our hand, we look at our spouse, we look at the sky, and we realize that we've been touched by God.
Rains down.
Jesus, I should work for fucking alcohol marketing, bro.
Upon the trembling earth, the gods and their celestial count.
For young people in chat that don't understand what I'm talking about, when stuff ferments, that's how you get alcohol. You ferment stuff. It basically goes so bad that it becomes good.
Council decree a challenger be created. Fashioned from clay and water, Enkidu emerges. A primeval man, wild and unconquered, equal in might to the oppressive king, cast into the vast and untamed wilderness, which the Sumerians called Eden. There, amidst the beasts, he finds his first and truest kin. The animals are his friends, and for his friends, Enkidu destroys traps laid by man and acts as the guardian of the wild. These frustrated the human trappers, who then summoned Shamhat, the temple priestess, to tame his savage soul. For 7 days and nights, she lies with Enkidu, her embrace a forge of domestication, and to further the transformation, she pours into his lips the amber drink of beer. When at last he turns to face his once kindred beasts, they flee from him. Eden, his primal cradle, recoils from his touch. Severed from the wild, Enkidu stands transformed.
I love adding, I was now inspired to add to the quote, everything is about power except power. Power is about sex. Except booze. Booze is about booze. You know that old joke of like girlfriends sitting together and being like, he's still out at 2 a.m. He must be trying to get with other ladies and cheat on our lovely relationship. Meanwhile, dudes drunk being like, look at this fucking Wow Mao video, bro. Right? It elevates you past the material conundrum, which is to have or not to have, which is to take or to be taken. It is true enlightenment. It is going doo-doo brain.
For his feet now tread the path of civilization. You think we started farming for food? Spend even more hours of the day than hunting and gathering to grow crops, yielding a meager pallid diet, less nourishing than the marrow of game? And only after we grind that crop into a fine powder, hydrate it, bake it in fire, then do we make it edible. No, dude. Obviously that wasn't the original idea. It's too complicated and stupid. A poorer yield, a frailer diet, it defies reason. There was literally no benefit to growing grains except for one instance, letting it ferment in water and making beer. There is no early civilization that didn't have alcohol. Mesopotamia, 8000 BC.
Pre-commodification, okay? Let's input a little bit of Marxism here, okay? Before food was commodified and turned into an item which you trade for another item or later on for currency, the true enlightened, truly human approach to surplus food was not to utilize it in order to get more power over your fellow man or a neighboring tribe. It was to turn it into booze. The first moment man chose to not turn his surplus grapes into booze, he became a commodity producer.
Fermented beer with water given by the Tigris and Euphrates.
Think about it, actually. My point is like really on point. It's on point as fuck. Like it's unironically on point as fuck. If you do not utilize the surplus of what you've created, and instead give it a financial category as a means to getting more resources, the only way you can do that with food is if you don't make it into fucking booze, bro.
China, 7000 BC, fermented fruits and rice to make ambrosia. Mesoamerica fermented spirits from the agave's heart. Peru from corn. Indus Valley from sugarcane. This isn't even a joke. Moreover, alcohol requires a cool place to ferment. This is how we came up with buildings, walls, or...
I mean, you might not accept his truth, but his truth is truly enlightening. Also, I love the new fucking style with the levitating head. I should maybe copy that.
A roof. It's the perfect place to ferment alcohol. And while you're brewing there, you might as well live in there. And that's how we started houses, therefore...
And then bars.
Villages, and therefore cities, and therefore civilization.
Man, whoever his editor is, this is some incredible shit.
But hold on, it gets deeper than that. Alcohol has proven its importance over cities, over flesh. But what, I ask you?
Oh my God, and there he has the added like echo while showing a church. This is the most underrated creator on the platform, in my genuine opinion. Wow Mao is like, if I was the dictator of YouTube, I would make Wow Mao the fucking chancellor. Okay, like this is literally peak. It's peak. There's no higher quality content in the world except for Wow Mao. I'm dying on this fucking hill.
Is the most important thing you hold? The answer is your soul. For if alcohol birthed civilization, how then does it ingrain itself in the matters of the spiritual? Or is the real question, did alcohol allow us to believe?
Part 2. Alcohol as the cause of religion.
Why not? Imagine the first guy that got drunk. Like the first dude that got drunk. He was like, okay, I'm literally being touched by God. I don't even want to think about the first guy that did shrooms or any of that crazy fucking shit, right? Like, oh my fucking God, the bush is on fire, you know? The bush is on fire, what the fuck, right? But even with booze, being like, oh my God, I can now speak in front of the masses. Oh my God, I must preach this booze. But they do not understand where it comes from. I shall say, hey, beautiful deity. I mean, if you believe that the world is not created out of evolution, but by intelligent design, that means that an intelligent design gave us wine. What was that Georgian joke? Wine was God's apology for giving us the notion of the self, self-realization. The notion, that's not self-realization. Consciousness. Wine was God's apology for giving us consciousness.
Drink in moderation is one of the most ridiculous statements ever made. You must drink a little more than moderation. St. Paul.
Yeah, then just don't drink. Yeah, this is so stupid. Like, I just have one beer. No, don't. Be healthy. Just don't have any. Like, God bless, it's good for you. Don't have any. But unless you're getting smashed, like, why are you, I'll have what does this contribute to? What? Just either get smashed and don't fucking drink, please.
One of his wisdom said we should take a little wine for our stomach's sake and for our frequent infirmities.
The creation of alcohol, a process we understand now, but it must have been unfathomable to the primitive mind. You couldn't see it. You couldn't see it happen. You'd have no idea what's going on. Sometimes it didn't even work. To the ancient Sumerian, cradling his brew, this was no mere chance. It was the handiwork of a higher power. If I was an ancient Sumerian addicted to alcohol, and I find that really easy to imagine.
I was about to say, what the fuck?
I'd probably pray, goddess of beer, for the miracle of intoxication. A miracle. What else could it be? What else would you call it? You got no idea what's happening to you. I've seen miracles myself happen while I've been drunk. I probably would have written them down too. And there's numerous times where I cried out for God while I was drunk. Imagine that experience to an ancient soul in the desert. Imagine him crying out to God. You think he's being hyperbolic? Or is he being serious? Think of this as well. If you believe that all of religion is...
But also it wouldn't exist in this incredible equilibrium of balance. This duality manifest, where you cannot drink in eternal perpetuity, for you must vomit, for you must stop, for you might faint, you might black out. And you cannot drink in perpetuity from day to day, because blessings must be cherished and limited. And if you disregard this and continue to do it regularly, then a great consequence knocks on your door. It's called... fucking hangovers, bro. Fucking hangovers. The great fucking equilibrium of all. If it did not cause consumption of ethanol, if it did not cause hangovers, all of human society would just be drunk. Like in perpetuity. We would not develop jack fucking shit. Or we would develop more advanced ways of getting drunk. Okay, that would just be it. That would be it. So while it is astute of Comrade Wow Mao to say that booze has been a blessing, we must also remember that hangovers have been a blessing as well. For all exist in duality. There is no death without life. There is no happiness without sadness. There is no liberation without shackles. And there is no drinking without hangovers.
Man's creation. Why then did he forge torments to plague his soul? Demons in the dark, possession's grip, the fires of hell itself. Why dream up such burdens? Why make that shit up? Dude, you're stressing everybody out. Well, think about this. The hangover. That wretched specter clawing at the skull. Was that not the work of demons? Running out of beer, was that...
Here we disagree with Comrade Wow Mao. No, quite to the contrary. Once we were given this great gift by Mother Nature or God or whoever you believe in, they understood the humans' inability to limit themselves when exploring the bounty of the earth. And that is when they gave us a hangover. It is not the demon. The demon wants you to continue drinking in perpetuity, but that then loses the blessings of the drink itself. It is no longer to be contrasted with everyday regular life, and therefore it to an extent loses its value. It no longer lifts. It becomes the status quo. But the hangover brings you down and reminds you exactly what you are fighting.
That not a curse? And the father
the problem is the problem with gooning is that there is no gooning hangover. Exactly. And that is why it is such an incredible plague on all of the world, except for the gooner children of Israel, of course.
Speaking of stale ale, raging at his family, was he not to them possessed? Thus humanity put their fears into scripture to make sense of the chaos of drinking. And the thread runs deeper still, the blood of Christ, wine lifted in sacrificial rite, monasteries brimming with casks, monks tending not just souls but barrels. Even in Islam, the prohibition of alcohol still acts as an acknowledgement to alcohol's power. Alcohol is both revered and feared. Rightfully so. It has shaped not just the world around us, but our very souls.
That's the way we feel about him. We think he has to have a drink, he needs it, and it keeps him happy and relaxed. And we like him to take a drink. And I like him to take a drink because of that.
Part 3. Alcohol as the cause of everything. The invention of music.
I don't know, man.
Hugo becomes an old Greek philosopher when talking about beers. I become an old Greek philosopher when I talk about things that are original and not talked about previously, because everything else is simply repeating and repeating and repeating. And here we have in 4K the development of an ironic new theory by our friend Wow Mao, and I'm trying to contribute to this new theory of everything coming from the belly of ethanol. Okay?
But banging this stick again.
Everything else is just repeating. Then obviously stuff that I believe in, etc., etc. But let's be honest, it is to an extent just repeating, paraphrasing, better explaining, and so on. This is the introduction of something new, right? And that is when I become very passionate.
Against this rock over and over again sounds great when I'm drunk.
The invention of warfare.
Man, taking a guy's life is crazy. I gotta be like 2 beers deep for you to convince me to kill a guy.
The invention of mathematics.
How many beers does it take to get me drunk? Subtract that from the beers I've already drunk, and subtract that from the beers I have left.
The invention of democracy.
Alright, so who's paying the tab?
Yes.
Oh, man.
The invention of time.
Hey, man, do you know what happy hour is?
The invention of jobs.
Dude, I'll suck your dick if you give me beer money.
The
2,000 years later.
Invention of lying.
Trust me, babe, I only had like a couple beers while I was out.
The invention of festivities.
Man, I really need a reason to get drunk right now.
The invention of sports.
Man, I really want to watch something while I'm drunk.
The invention.
Oh, what is he gonna say? The invention of cigarettes? Oh, I really need to smoke something while I'm drunk.
Of cigarettes.
Man, I really want something to smoke while I'm drunk.
Great minds think alike. Ooh.
The invention of cars.
Man, I really want to drive something while I'm drunk.
Man, there must have been so much fun back when there was no cars on the road. Please don't do this. You will kill someone. But back then, you know, kind of sounds like a great fucking time, to be perfectly honest. Like on an open field with your little tractor, fucking buzz out of your mind, like, woo, look at me. I'm a tractor guy. I'm a tractor guy. Woo, wee, wah, tractor guy.
The invention of Belgium.
Look at it, man. You think they were sober when they came up with it?
Conclusion.
I love the first powerful, violent impact of a glass of whiskey when it's thrown back in me and when it hits the mark below. I chase it then with a pint, and that's even more beautiful still.
So go ahead. Buy a beer right now. Buy a 4-pack actually. And feel no guilt. You're only doing what you're meant to do. Without alcohol, we are nothing. With it, we are all.
They look through a glass, and while the glass and the lens might be the right strength,
Americans being like, 4-pack? Fucking weak, brother. That is fucking weak. We only got 6 packs worth of piss water over here, brother.
The distortion lies in the brain behind the lens.
I'm so getting drunk with company time right now. Yeah, if anybody's struggling with booze addiction, like, I'm very sorry. You should not have been part of the chat. But for the rest of you on here, motherfuckers, holy shit, do I feel inspired?
And that is what they see.
Remember the...
Oh my God, jump scare. Woman jump scare. Oh no, woman jump scare. No, jump scare. Oh no, VPN, gonna no. I fucking love those you memes. Oh God, wow, Mao, wow, Mao, wow, wow, Mao, wow. Go and like this, and also like my post. I posted the most important video of our fucking era. Go and uplift me into the high ranks of Wow Mao chatters. Everything we do is to get money, which is what we do to get power, which is what we do to get leisure, which is what we do to get high and drunk and goon. Nietzsche said this once. As an Australian, you make me do a double take. I was like, shit, must have clicked on an ABC ad by mistake. But now Wow Mao is actually the god of understanding foreign cultures. The fact that peak human happiness was achieved by hunter-gatherers only to be overwhelmed by agricultural civilization because, checks notes, sedentary life made it easier to produce alcohol is a good summary of our species. Блядь, so fucking G. Was God's drunkest warrior to level the playing field. I retired and became sober. Absolutely good for you, man. Good for you. Literally, like, sober people are just the highest ranking retired drinkers. That is why active drinkers must give them full respect. You know, I always found it extremely toxic to like make fun of someone because they're not participating in any sort of cultural norm. Both because it's an evil thing to do, because people struggle with substances if we're talking about alcohol, but also it's because it's like infighting, because like, dude, you're making fun of somebody who is such an expert, unhinged fucking drinker that they took it so fucking overboard that they had to stop and say, holy shit, I need to stop. You're basically making fun of your veterans, okay? In the state of alcoholism, sober people are our like strongest and proudest troops, man. Our greatest fighters who have now come back from the battlefields of ethanol consumption and have said, I have reaped too much and I have sowed too much, and now I must retreat myself to a life of solitude and peace. Okay, so yeah, it's not only you're not only a shitty person for making fun of someone for being sober, you're also a literal traitor to your class of the drinking classes and the drinking masses. They prestiged. Yeah. You're so real for this state. I mean, it's true. It's literally fucking true. At this point, like, I'm getting old, and I have like permanently sober friends. All of the friends that are permanently sober still manage to go out and everything, and they don't drink, and I super respect it. But I don't only respect it because I like to call myself a decent human being who is okay with people managing their life whatever way they want them want to manage it, like. But it's also because, like, almost every single permanently sober friend I have right now was like the most prestige fucking level drinker back in the day. Like absolutely unhinged fucking sociopaths, in a good way, of course. As a former alcoholic, I agree with this message. Well, thank you. It's so you can unironically use it against some of your friends that might give you shitty comments or be like passive aggressive to an extent for when you're like, dude, I'm not fucking drinking. Stop pushing the fucking beer in my hand, right? By just literally telling them, like, I've been where you at a long time ago, and I've already passed that fucking level, bitch. Okay, respect your elders, respect the tribe leaders of your community. We are that like quiet ex-Mongol warrior that now has dedicated his life to preparing meals for the children of the tribe and like teaching poetry, right? That does not mean that they are not capable of great violence or that they are not the highest member of a Mongolian caste as a great soldier. No, they have seen so many lands, conquered so many peoples, shed so much blood that they've simply gotten over it. So yes, drinkers, respect your non-drinkers, but also non-drinkers, respect your drinkers, for we are also on a path you were once on. Give us time.
Michaelis.
Now, we're moving on to how U.S. neo-Nazi organizations actually work. I'm going to go take a quick piss. I'll leave you with this handsome mug. I won't start it because I don't want to. No, I'll start it. No, then I'll miss the whole context, Blyat. How do I do this? I'll play something that's in the middle. And I'll come back and I'll rewind to the beginning. There we go.
Women in our movement, but it was at least 7 or 8 to 1 as far as men to women ratio went. So there weren't a lot of women to go around. And typically the few women that were involved in the movement were all with the alpha guys. So the alpha guys all had hot girlfriends, and Joe Pissed Off White Kid sees this and he's not doing the math, and he's like, well, that's what I want. So I'm going to do what this guy says because then I'll get that too. Never mind that there's not a whole lot of women out there. I actually had one guy in my crew who dipped his toes in and left. When I was interviewing him for my book, I said, well, why did you leave? And he's like, dude, it's really hard to get laid when you're a neo-Nazi. Like, chicks aren't into that, man. That's not attractive. And that was his big motivator to leave. He's like, I wanted girls, man, and they're not into that. So that dynamic was really front and center in our recruiting and really in everything that happened in that group. Milwaukee, where I was from, is the most segregated city in the United States for many years running. And what that means for neo-Nazi groups is it's very easy to point at these severely depressed inner city areas and go, see, that's what happens. That's what they do. Those people create these neighborhoods. That's completely ignorant of the truth that all the ghettos in the United States were created by government policy. And because of being segregated and sequestered to these incredibly hyper-compressed inner city areas, that's what created those ghettos. It wasn't the people who lived there. But of course, no white nationalist is going to admit that. No.
Ich bin zurück, meine Freunde. Now, let's go to the beginning. I think this will be very interesting. I think this will be very, very interesting because we'll be hearing from somebody who was a part of this organization and who is now going to tell us how it actually worked. So, that's a fucking goo. That's a fucking goon. It's a goon time.
My name is Arno Michaelis. I was a white nationalist skinhead, a lead singer in a neo-Nazi metal band. This is everything I'm authorized to tell you. In the most formative years of my life, I was just immersed in this hate and violence. I was actually at a neo-Nazi rally in Michigan where about 50 of us brawled with like 500 anti-fascists, and there were all too many times when we would jump people and just beat the hell out of them. I've done a lot of harm to innocent people and to society, and I need to be accountable for that harm. What attracted me to neo-Nazi ideology initially was really the hero story. I grew up being a big fan of fantasy and mythology. I was really into Greek myths and Norse myths as a kid. The mythology of...
Were usually might is what defines what is right, and entire civilizations and entire cultures are saved by smart, strong, eloquent, direct men. Most people that hyperfixate on mythology, which then leads them to right-wing thinking, get only the reactionary aspects of mythological stories. They confuse themselves into thinking that these mythological stories are true historic accounts. And through that confusion, they start actually believing that society can be fixed as long as there are a few strong and dedicated individuals that will take on the Medusas, the serpents, the Cyclops, the invading tribes, etc., etc. It is a hyper-individualized understanding of how societies change, etc., etc. But it carries so much emotional weight. It is so heavy that once you start taking it in, its simplicity kind of answers so many questions. And to those questions, you answered in the same way. It's all about a couple of guys that really want to dedicate themselves to kicking out Medusa, and then everything's going to be fine.
Nazi ideology going back to Adolf Hitler was that we are these Aryan supermen, the brightest of all creation, that are under assault by these dark, evil hordes. And here we are fighting back against them, against incredible odds, but with incredible strength. It was very much the same kind of mystique that you would find in a Lord of the Rings movie.
That is why your boy Hugo calls it what? D&D, but IRL and violent.
Or a Conan book. And for me, this was like my chance to actually be that hero on this noble quest. And then as I got more into it and took in more and more...
And in the same way, like in D&D, you invent races, you invent cultures that you oversimplify and say, these guys behave like this, those guys behave like this. These guys are good because they're simply good. These guys are bad because they're simply bad. And if you do not have the information base, or to an extent very often even the intelligence, with all due respect, in order to counter-argue those points in your head, it sounds extremely legitimate. It like, why should I not be a part of the civilized, good, pure, advanced group? Why should I not do my best to advance it against the interests of the subhuman masses and tribes who, sure, cannot help themselves being bad, so we do not judge them, but we understand that it is either us or them. It is very often like introduced to you with a heavy moral undertone, right?
The ideology, a lot of that ideology was about like, look how evil and horrible they are, and look how good and noble my people are. Look at all.
Elves have +2 in int, exactly, and like blacks have +5 in strength, but -6 in int. But Asians have +7 in int, but -10 in strength. While I don't know, the Western European white man has like a mid but OP build, and all the other ones understand that he has a OP build, and that is why they unify in order to destroy them, etc., etc.
All these great things we have done despite all the challenges and despite being under assault by everybody else. There was actually a music distribution.
Could we watch the Freda video I added? Sure, or after this one maybe, yeah.
Outfit in Chicago called Romantic Violence. And those two words sum up the entire ideology better than anything.
Can video games be history? Yeah, that sounds good. That one, can video games be history? Yeah, after this one, we can go to that one.
I could say at length. There's a romance to it. It makes you feel like you're a hero and you're doing something good for your people. As you get further into the ideology, it's all about pseudoscience, about how whites are superior to everybody else, all kinds of nonsense about the size of our brains and IQ. And then, of course, all of this is deeply rooted in anti-Semitism. The entire ideology is based on seeing Jews as the root of all evil on the planet Earth. That's the core of the neo-Nazi belief, is that the white race is this, first of all, it exists. You have to have some kind of idea of who's white and who's not. And again, that was never firmly established by anything. I remember meeting Italian skinheads. There was one crew that their leader was an Armenian guy who looked like he was, straight out of Iraq or something. And I said, "What are you, Italian?" He's like, "I'm Armenian. Hitler had Armenian SS units." And I was like,
the cope.
All right, well, if it was good enough for Hitler, it's good enough for me.
But there you go. It is even the most strict form of fascism, which was Nazism, and it was, when it comes to racial categorizations, quite on borderline impressively strict. It also allowed for certain wiggle room. Especially during the war, when they realized that if we are extremely strict with our racial categories, we might not be able to win this war. And then they wiggled on it, with all sorts of Croatian units, Russian units, fucking Turkish units, fucking Kazakh units, fucking Muslim units, fucking anything units, right? Fucking Arab units, right? They, what's the word? Even when they wiggled even on that core principle, and they still fucking lost.
The most damaging aspect of the neo-Nazi ideology is
that you think that you are.
I'm Hitler's top guy. What am I gonna do? Adolf Hitler chose me to lead the revolution.
The fear. Anybody who does look like you and doesn't think like you, they're not only an enemy, they're the highest order of enemy. They're a race traitor. So it's this experience of going through every waking moment of your day thinking that everyone else in the world is not only out to kill you personally, but out to destroy everyone who looks like you. And it's a miserable way to live that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. I tattooed a swastika on my own leg, which I've since had covered up. I had a swastika on my middle finger for a time, cleverly.
That doesn't sound too fucking respectful to the cause, bro, on your middle finger. It's like American patriots that wear fucking underwear that's covered in the American flag. So what, when you don't wipe properly and you fucking scratch your ass and you get shit all over your fucking American flag draped underwear, how loving is that of the fucking republic, bro? The middle finger represents the penis, bruv. Why are you look at my Nazi penis? Look at my Nazi penis.
So I could show it to someone before I hit them. The other symbolism we used, there was any kind of Norse ruin. Just like Hitler did, we co-opted the Norse folk religion and kind of made it into this white nationalist thing, which is, along with pretty much everything else in the ideology, is incredibly historically inaccurate, because the Vikings really, they killed people who...
We talk about this here all the time. It's borderline fascinating, to be perfectly honest. The part that is fascinating is which cultures and which particular both symbolisms and ways of life and ways of dress they steal. But the key takeaway is that every single fascist movement in history, especially the one that focuses on like kind of cultural or ethnic belonging, almost never fully dedicated itself to embracing the cultural and ethnic way of life or symbolism of the people that they're trying to represent. They would almost always go somewhere abroad and take something from cultures and peoples that have absolutely nothing to do with their own ethnicity that they're being ethnocentric about. I've always found it very interesting. Like even Adolf Hitler made sure to get almost all the photos of him in Ledenshausen, Ledenshausen, deleted, because how embarrassing he felt from the way he looked in them. It does not sound like someone extremely patriotic of their Germanic heritage, right? And that is why it's almost, I mean, it leads us to a wider conversation where, like, these guys don't really give a shit about the culture that they're preserving. These guys give a shit about creating a culture, creating a new way of life that they then want to preserve. True traditionalists are not a real thing, because if true traditionalists followed through on their understanding of back in the day it was better, they would, I don't know, they would Ted Kaczynski this shit. They would be like, we need to become cave dwellers again, because that was the true way that man was supposed to experience life.
Who looked like them, and they had peaceful trade and diplomatic relationships with North Africa and the Middle East. There's a lot of like lingo to neo-Nazi movement. The first one I learned was '88 when I met the Chicago skinhead crew. A lot of them had like sports jerseys on that had 88 as the number. The 8th letter of the alphabet is H. So 88 means Heil Hitler. So it's code.
Everybody knows that here, I hope.
Code for Heil Hitler. In the mid-'80s, there was a really dangerous militant white nationalist terror group called the Order, or the Bruderschweigen, and they assassinated a Jewish talk show host. They were doing all kinds of things to like fund a race war before they were ultimately taken down.
Yeah, they were robbing banks and shit, and they were the ones that followed that fucking fictional book.
But one of the members of
What was it called?
the Order, who was in prison for life and unrepentant, he decided we needed some sort of like slogan, like some catchy mantra. This
is so true. Right-wing politicians in Netherlands go to Volendam all the time because it's the last vestige of what they perceive as Dutch culture, even though they're not from there. Yeah, they're always like to an extent too self-aware of the inadequacies of their own culture, because they are so hyper-fixated on putting culture in hierarchical categories. This aspect of this culture is superior to that one versus this one that is superior to the first one versus this one that is superior to the third one, but it's not as good as the fourth one, etc., etc. When you're doing this hyper-categorization and this people is here in the hierarchy, this other people is here in the hierarchy, eventually you become hyper-conscious of very often fictional concepts about your own culture, about your own race, about your own people or whatever, that you start thinking are completely inferior. Why, for example, do you think that like modern Nazis lose their mind so much about interracial porn, right? And sure, it's the old category of like, ooh, the Jews want to inspire race mixing. That's why they're investing so much in interracial porn, something that even Kanye West himself believed. And that was one of the main reasons why he became a Nazi, right? But it's also the second category in their hyperfixation with stereotypes and with, biology being everything combined with culture. They ironically genuinely started believing the pill of herder black dudes have big penises, so we should so that means that we all have smaller penises, so we will all the time continuously forever talk about cock size and how white women should not see how big black penises are. Just don't clip this, right? All stereotypes, all bullshit, etc., etc. But ironically, because they're so hyper-focusing on, what do the others have that I do not? What do the others have that I do not? That they've created this fucking thing that lives in their head for eternity. So yeah, ironically, that's how you get white supremacists that are obsessed with black cock. Incredible. Cock. How do you say coke in English? Yeah. White man has been here. How can you tell? Cuckold porn.
The movement could use to unite us and inspire us. So he came up with the 14 words, which are, we must secure the existence of our race and a future for white children. So to this day, if you're looking at a social media handle, if you see the numbers 14 and 88, that's a good indicator that it's a white nationalist account. There were ways to identify as either a white power or an anti-racist skinhead, and it was typically involved the color of the laces in your boots and or the color of your braces that you wore. If you were a neo-Nazi, you'd have red laces, red braces. Anti-racist skinheads would sometimes wear white laces, although some people would say white laces are white pride, so they'd wear like yellow laces or anything but the red laces. And then, of course, beyond that, obviously, if you see someone with a swastika patch, a white power skinhead's typically going to have outright white supremacist symbols all over their body and tattoos and or patches on a jacket, whereas the anti-racist skinheads would also have like anti-fascist patches and things like that. Hammerskin Nation began in...
Well, speaking about Nazis, what is this? You can tell a lot about Ubisoft with how much money they are throwing at terrorist platforming streamers playing Assassin's Creed Shadows. Hassan is a fraud, bro. Elon Musk has taken the Hassan pill. Holy fucking shit. Sellout would be more accurate. Objectively, he is promoting a terrible game just for the money. This bitch literally paid someone to power level his character in Poe 2. What do you mean I'm a fraud? Elon, I challenge you to a duel in Elden Ring. I will cook your fat rolling ass. That's great shit. That's great shit. A back and forth that we never thought we needed, but that we got. Basado.
In the southern United States, specifically Dallas, Texas. There was a skinhead gang in...
What do you mean the Hassan pill? The obsessing over Hassan all the fucking time pill? That's
Dallas.
That's a Hassan pill.
Who took the crossed hammers...
Letting Hassan live in your fucking head rent-free.
...from Pink Floyd The Wall, and they put him in front of a Confederate flag, and it looked really cool. And they said, they just called themselves, we're the Hammerskins. This was right about the same time that my gang in Milwaukee was starting. In 1988, one of the lead members of the Confederate Hammerskins in Dallas, Texas, came up to Milwaukee, and he pitched the idea to us that we become Northern Hammer Skinheads. And the Hammerskins were born. Despite the hypocrisy of using a symbol from a band that considers themselves very anti-fascist, we had no problem appropriating that crossed hammer logo. And in our case, we put it on a field of U.S. flag blue with 13 stars around the hammers. to signify the northern Hammerskins. And very shortly afterwards, there were Northern Hammer chapters in Chicago and St. Paul and Detroit and Ohio. And while this was happening, there were more Confederate Hammerskin groups popping up all over the South. Now, down south, there was a lot of cross.
So holy shit. Okay, this is fun. This is very fun to me. Because, as we previously said, these guys always steal symbolism, art, names from foreign cultures because they're like, that looks cool. We can adapt that to our thing, and it's going to attract a wider array of people. But what was culture in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s of hyper-consumerist America, right? It was products, including bands, right? So while in the past they would look at, I don't know, ancient Indian scripture and symbols or ancient Scandinavian symbols, etc., in, the 30s, the 20s, when they were forming those groups, instead of the United States in the 70s and 80s, they were looking at what the coolest symbols were for that era. And the coolest symbols for that era came from the coolest people, and those were rock bands, metal bands, punk bands, etc., etc. So in that pursuit, they went and they took that and they added it to their little gallery. It's interesting. It's interesting how it repeats so much to a point of absurdity where, back in the day it was stealing religious symbols, etc., pagan symbols and so on, and now it's literally just taking a fucking logo by a privately owned group. Carlsberg, the beer, used to have a swastika on it. That's fucking funny. Mork Carlsberg Skatte, Danish brewery company, Carlsberg Group. Swastika is a logo from the 19th century until the middle of the 1930s. Holy shit, they might have seen it from the beer bottle. That would be fucking hilarious. Imagine if they saw it from the beer bottle and we all got it super fucking wrong. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Figgy. Speaking of thank you very much to all of you who consider subscribing and supporting what we do here on the show. Inadvertently also causing the adpocalypse and avoiding the ad that is going to play in exactly 1 minute and 10 seconds. $6 a month, free through Prime, or gifting to those less privileged than you are all very, very fine options. Feel good, don't watch ads, make others feel good. Thank you very much for even considering it.
Crossover between the Ku Klux Klan and the Hammerskins. There was a lot of old school Klansmen who were very happy to see this wellspring of youth coming into their movement, and they.
Thank you, Will Tokes, for oiling me up, baby. I am all covered in Will Tokes' oil. Cover me up in all sorts of oil. I am very, very grateful. Thank you, Will Tokes.
Were okay to stomach the tattoos and the punk rock music in the process. So there were a number of Confederate Hammer skinheads who were also members of Ku Klux Klan groups at the time. When I was involved in Hammerskin Nation, there was really no centralized command. Every group operated individually. It was really just, we use the same symbol. We're all racist anti-Semites. We're all violent drunks. We all love this music. And those were the real unifying factors behind it. As I was leaving, people started having titles, and there started to be an attempt at having some sort of structure about how the group was going to work. And to varying degrees, that was followed as Hammerskin Nation spread to Europe, to Australia, to New Zealand.
Thank you, Nocturnal25, for the 2 months. Thank you very much.
And even to Argentina and South Africa. In our group in Milwaukee, we didn't have any kind of official structure. We didn't have titles. We had just unofficial kind of organic hierarchy the same way a wolf pack would. There's certainly
Nazi anarchists just dropped.
Alphas, and they certainly run things, but they're not voted. They don't have titles. That's just how it is. I wasn't the sole alpha leader. I was one of a number. We weren't really conscious of this. It was just kind of how it went. If we were going to make a decision about something, it would be me and the other alphas talking about it. And once we decided on whatever that was, that's how it was. And everybody else could follow along or they could get the hell out.
Yeah, there you go. I was joking about the anarchist Nazis. Like, it was so... Nazi organization is so hyper-hierarchical that, sure, once it becomes more successful or more politically involved, it needs to create official structures. But they believe in hierarchy so much that most of their members willingly basically cuck themselves and accept the stronger, broader-shouldered alphas to become in charge. Because a Nazi exists in the duality of wanting to be superior to others, but also subservient to the ultimate authority, right? They always exist in this not balance, a lack of balance.
That was basically how things worked. I don't know that Hammerskin Nation is as much of a thing as it used to be. There are groups like the Proud Boys. At their peak, the Proud Boys were like the modern manifestation of Hammerskin Nation, even though there was very significant differences, namely that the Proud Boys' official leader was a Latino man, and that would have never happened in Hammerskin Nation. But other than that, they were a street brawling, kind of street fighter-oriented group, and I think a lot of Hammerskin Nation people, if they didn't grow out of it, which most of them do, honestly, they may have found themselves affiliated with groups like the Proud Boys.
And that is why it's extremely important what you just mentioned. It's extremely important to not allow any of these groups to grow, because if they're allowed even an inch of land, an inch of space, they start thinking that they're invincible, and that allows them to grow even further and to radicalize even further. But that is a double-edged sword. If they do not manage to garner greater political power, more members, more money, more influence, they very quickly fall apart, because most of them are in it to feel powerful, to feel domineering, to be on top of the food chain. But the moment you start looking around and noticing that you're a bunch of stupid fucking losers that have done nothing with their fucking life, that sort of driving force that might have pushed you up until that point can no longer sustain you. And you start recognizing that you are a bunch of stupid fucking losers and that you should do something else with your life. But if it's not stopped at that instance and allowed to grow, allowed to make you feel powerful, allowed to make you feel like there is a grander path set in front of us of what we can actually achieve, then you'll stick around. That's why never give them a fucking inch. Never give them a fucking inch. Because from 1 to 100 is much fucking faster for a fascist organization than for a progressive one or a communist one or whatever. But also from 20 back to 0, it's also much faster for them, because they are in this constant loop of seeking, greater and greater and greater satisfaction from growth. The LARP is fed, so the feds hire them. Amazing. Oh yeah, don't even get me started on that.
Recruiting a neo-Nazi was 2 steps, basically.
Also, the main reason that feds actually bust neo-Nazi organizations, etc., is because feds understand that in order to have a long-term, sustainable, in this case of America, neoliberal capitalist structure, power should not be so openly flaunted, and certain things should only be said behind closed doors, while people like the Proud Boys or any different type of neo-Nazi organization don't keep that sort of code of secrecy to an extent, and that lets them go crazy. What is up, Raiders? Double raid. What the actual shit? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you very much, Dave. Legend. And thank you very much, Gremlo. I hope both of you had a lovely, lovely, lovely experience today. Friends of the show, both of them, go and follow both of them if you, for some fucking reason, have not. Welcome to the stream, guys. It is very, very nice to see all our beautiful raiders. If anybody was thinking of gifting subs, now would be the point. Now would be the moment to make our lovely new viewers feel at home and welcome. What you will not feel at home and welcome about is the particular topic we're covering today. We are watching a ex-neo-Nazi militant organization member talk about how inside of the United States those sort of structures operate. If you're new to my show, I, to an extent, really do specialize to an extent in fascist thought, the development of fascist organizations, and the different niche aspects of how they try to both recruit new members and develop new worldviews that can envelop us in a sort of mummy of hatred and take us down some very, very dark paths, and obviously their relationship to the socialist cause and progressive causes in general, etc., etc. I had a talk with Gremlo last stream that was fucking awesome. Graham, I really enjoyed it, and I think we should do it on a semi-regular basis. I think it was really cool. It was really nice. And for those of you who missed it, my lovely mods uploaded it on Yugopnik Live over on YouTube. Just try Yugopnik Live and you can watch the whole conversation. It was very chill. It was very fun. It was very nice. But yes, one more time, thank you, Gremlo, and thank you, Dave. Now, let's continue.
The first step was to get this kid to identify as white. Typically, if I have an archetype called Joe Pissed Off White Kid. If I'm talking to Joe Pissed Off White Kid, the first thing I have to do is convince him that he's a white man, and that's how he should identify himself. In the late 80s, most people racialized as white didn't identify themselves as white. If I asked Joe who he was, he would say, I'm American. My family's Catholic. We're Democrats or Republicans.
There you go. This is a microcosm of how generally race has been used as a tool for segregation since basically its inception. People don't organically believe that they are superior or inferior to someone else because of this grander idea of a racial category. No, it is exactly ethnocentric fascists that will come to you and actually tell you, and very often it's very inviting, right? It's exceptionally inviting. They come and they tell you, no, don't you know? You're a part of a much bigger tribe, a much longer lineage of development and culture. You might not have felt like you belonged up until now, but we will introduce to you a whole nother way of life, a lost brotherhood of sorts that will then proudly take you in and protect you no matter what, right? And that in the States especially is the category of white. In Nazi Germany, it was the category of Nordic and a link to ancient Aryan civilizations or whatever the fuck, where they sometimes larped, okay, the French and the Italians and the Brits are kind of okay because they've not been as race mixed as the categories of people that have been greatly undermined because of malevolent Jewish influence, etc., like the Slavs, the Soviets in general, the Balkans, the Polacks, and so on.
Whatever. There's going to be also...
Got to put the seed of false consciousness to explain all their problems. Exactly. Hence why we, to an extent, call it reactionary.
Sorts of ways that they identify themselves other than racially. So I have to stop him in his tracks and be like, listen, white man, whether you like it or not, the enemies of our people...
The Japanese have their own version of this against the Chinese and Koreans. Almost every single part of the world, from Africa to Asia down to South and North America, you will find instances where this is utilized. Hey, you're struggling in life. Everything sucks. Don't look at the economic system. Don't look at the system in general. Don't look at, not to LARP, but like material relations and so on. No, we're going to introduce you to an idea that will develop fake consciousness in you about where all your problems come from. And then more importantly, we will offer you a solution to said problems. And in this case, it's like, hey, the other races, bro.
Identify you as white. You don't have a choice about that. And the white race is under attack. If you don't join us and fight back, we're all going to be wiped out. I have to get that.
Hence why false consciousness.
Across to this kid, and he has to buy into it before I can proceed to step 2, which is to make him feel persecuted because he's white. In the late 80s, it was much more difficult to do that than it is today. In the late 80s, we didn't have all this talk of white privilege and white fragility and open talk saying, well, everything wrong with the world is basically white people's fault. Back in the 80s, it was just much more amorphous. We're all human beings. We have all these different ways of identifying ourselves. It wasn't like codified into racial groups like it is today. So I had to concoct things about how white people are oppressed. And once I could get him to buy into that he is white and he's oppressed because of it, now he's a white nationalist. Now he's a neo-Nazi. Now he's ready to come up to our drinking hall, get drunk with us, and get beat up. Though that was the recruitment process that we went through back in the day. If you're a teenager who has a history of trauma in your family, if you're living in poverty, if whatever you have going wrong,
they come and they give you a false solution. Exactly.
Or,
as exactly, chat, as Jakub said, the high level of technology. But what was it? Jakub created white man to trick everybody, but he was too OP. He out-OP'd the white man because the white man ended up doing technology on himself and started actually believing the whole race thing.
Things wrong you have, the more...
Nobody talks about that aspect of the theory, huh? Great things you learn here at YugopnikTwitch.
Openings there are for neo-Nazi ideology to take hold. And so that was how we recruited these kids.
The fuck is Jakub? Oh my God, you're about to go down an incredible pipeline. I was introduced to it by Bet Empanada, and I've not been the same since.
We blamed all their problems on Jews, and then they said, if you join us, we're going to fight back against that. And we're going to take our country back and take our lands back and everything. And you'll have all sorts of women crawling all over you. You'll be a white warrior. It'll be great. If you were a new guy in the crew, you needed to prove yourself and prove that you could hang with us. And the first way to do that would be by wrestling with us in our wherever we're drinking. If you can't handle that, which many people couldn't. There were a lot of guys who would be there for one night. They'd get the snot knocked out of them. They're okay, I'm done with this. They wouldn't come back. But for the guys who did come back, and they're like, yeah, let's do that again. That was fun. Like, okay, now we know this is a viable candidate here.
And this is arguably one of the best case scenarios, as toxic as it sounds, and you know what this fucking is. This is hazing, right? But this is best case scenario. It gets fucking freaky when you need to prove that you actually believe in what we all stand for, especially in the higher ranks. Because how do you prove it? You go and you fuck up a minority. You fully show the extent to which you're willing to take this whole thing. And that's when it becomes extra, extra dangerous. Because before then, it's basically a fucking social club that yells slurs, which is obviously fucked up, and, fuck them. But it's their own fucking thing. Let absolute fucking deranged lobotomite idiots do their own fucking thing in some house over there, as long as they don't fuck with me, blah, 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 liberal logic. But it never just stays in the house, does it now, especially with fascism.
And again, this was very organic, and it just happened. It wasn't like a policy. It wasn't something, oh, hey, congratulations.
Jakub actually only made brown people before passing. His followers made white people 600 years after his death. I'm not sure that's correct. Is that revisionism, chat? Is Pandas doing revisionism? Is he trying to do technology on us?
For surviving, getting your kicked last night, you're in. It was more like, okay, if you like that, then let's do more of it. If you don't like it, get the hell out. The bulk of our recruits were men. It's interesting now because I work at Parents for Peace and we address all sorts of violent extremism. And there is a specific type of violent extremism called incel nowadays, which are men who call themselves involuntarily celibate. And
this is so unquoted, isn't it, chat? It's like, you've been talking about incels for like a decade. You've been talking about incels since 2012. And your unc comes at like the dinner table, your more progressive unc that used to be very conservative back in the day. And he's like, guys, I just heard about this incel thing. It's really dangerous. It's really an easy pipeline into conspiratorial thinking and bigotry and so on.
And they're angry because they don't have girlfriends. In my day, as in today, the typical number one complaint for Joe Pissed Off White Kid is he doesn't have a girlfriend. And he's angry about it. The thing is that there were women in our movement, but it was at least 7 or 8 to 1 as far as men to women ratio went. So there weren't a lot of women to go around. And typically the few women that were involved in the movement were all with the alpha guys. So the alpha guys all had hot girlfriends.
Barry, I'm not going to play the fucking Norm Finkelstein Gooner video for the 700th time, but I really appreciate your dedication, bro. Thank you, Rock and Rolla, for the 6 months, my friend. Thank you very much.
And Joe Pissed Off White Kid sees this, and he's not doing the math, and he's like, well, that's what I want. So I'm going to do what this guy says, because then I'll get that too. Never mind that there's not a whole lot of women out there. I actually had one guy in my crew who dipped his toes in and left. When I was interviewing him for my book, I said, well, why did you leave? And he's like, dude, it's really hard to get laid when you're a neo-Nazi. Like, chicks aren't into that, man. That's not attractive. And that was his big motivator to leave. He's like, I wanted girls, man, and they're not into that. So that dynamic was really front and center in our recruiting and really in everything that happened in that group. Milwaukee, where I was from, is the most segregated city in the United States for many years running. And what that means for neo-Nazi groups is it's very easy to point at these severely depressed inner city areas and go, see, that's what happens. That's what they do. Those people create these neighborhoods. That's completely ignorant of the truth that all the ghettos in the United States were created by government policy. And because of being segregated and sequestered to these incredibly hyper-compressed inner city areas, that's what created those ghettos. It wasn't the people who lived there. But of course, no white nationalist is going to admit that. No neo-Nazi is going to look at the true...
This is all correct, and all of you know this, right? But there's also like a class dynamic at play here, always. Because you're trying to pitch to usually poor people, but let's say peak middle class, even some privileged upper middle classes. The Americans like to define classes category of people. You'll rarely accept as investors actual multimillionaires or billionaires and so on, which will very gladly give you a lot of money to do unhinged things, but are rarely going to be, the street thugs that you're trying to get into the organization. So what class category am I talking about? Well, almost all fascist thought as we've defined by now based on hyper-hierarchical thinking. Where are you in this particular category? And sure, there's massive racial undertones to this where you say, oh, look at these people in these ghettos, they're all minorities and they're like this because they just racially inferior or any other type of bullshit like that as well. But what it also does is it tells you that just how much of a loser, quote unquote, financially you're not as bad as that other category. And you're the only reason you're not as bad as that other categories because of different, just random ass fucking conspiracies and lies about why those people live in greater poverty than you do, right?
Driving factors of poverty and addiction and crime in our country. Instead, they're going to make a leap of logic and say it's the color of the skin of the people who live there that create these conditions, not the actual policies that did. We were terrified to go to the inner city of Milwaukee.
Because once you swallow that pill, once you swallow the pill that poverty is simply a consequence of laziness, a fucked up culture, an inferior like ethnic category, etc., you can no longer accept the socialist critique of capitalism. Those two completely become separate visions of reality. And once you get them with this, it's very, very difficult to de-radicalize, let alone turn them into class conscious people one day, because it is the crux where class consciousness, quite literally, in their eyes, becomes reactionary.
We knew if we went there looking for trouble, we'd probably get shot. So instead, we went to a more posh part of town where like frat boys would hang out. We went there looking for anti-racist skinheads because that's typically where they would hang out. And if we found them, we'd chase them down and beat them up. In Milwaukee, we couldn't get a proper fight with them. So quite often we'd pile into vans and drive out to Minneapolis, or we'd drive down to Chicago where there was a lot more anti-racist skinheads and we could count on a good fight with them. A lot of times if it was late and there weren't a lot of people on the street and we saw a lone target of opportunity, which would basically be anyone that we didn't like, which was everyone but us. But if it was a person of color, or if it was someone that we thought was gay or Jewish.
There you go. In this category, like in this particular example, they're exceptionally unorganized. They're fucking stupid, but they're looking for a way to manifest their feelings of superiority. But they know they'll get the shit beat out of them in like conventionally defined black neighborhoods, or even in parts of town where there's a lot of anti-fascists, but they still need the kind of justification for their thought that they are superior, so they just pick an easy target and they beat them up. The problem with this, though, is that long term it's not sustainable. As I said previously, unless these groups grow, they stop believing their very own mythos of superiority. They're like, dude, I'm a fucking 45-year-old drunk with no family. What the fuck am I doing with my life? So they start leaving these organizations and they start trying to have some semblance of a normal life. But if they do manage to grow, then their hunger for justifying to themselves that they are actually superior and powerful also grows. That's when they start talking about entering, the state, entering open politics. And once they manage to enter that, that's when they start talking about applying their ideas on a systematic scale. And that's how you get states like fascist Spain, like Nazi Germany, like fascist Italy, etc., etc. It is constant hunger for justifying the hierarchy in which you belong. But deep down rooted, you don't believe in it fully if you need to justify it constantly. Right? Which leads you to greater and greater and greater acts of violence, because you need greater and greater acts of violence to justify why you're still fucking doing this, bro. Right?
Jewish or a punk rocker, like that was all the better. And there were all too many times when we would jump people in those circumstances and just beat the out of them. We called it a boot party. If it was like 10 of us booting one guy, that was a boot party. We'd throw him a boot party. And my stomach turns when I think about that violence that I've engaged in, but that happened quite often. Just as often, we'd run into larger groups. A lot of times we would go to bars where there was just a few of us, and we'd piss off somebody at the bar and end up fighting the whole bar. That happened a lot as well. Our main targets for violence and our main rivals were self-proclaimed anti-racist skinheads. It's important to understand that when the skinhead counterculture arose back in the 60s in the UK, it was working class kids, typically football hooligans. They'd go to soccer matches, they'd brawl the opposing team, but it wasn't racist from the get-go. There were immigrants from Pakistan and the West Indies who were all among the original skinheads. It wasn't until the 70s when the National Front, an outright fascist group in England, saw the...
Yeah, but they were militarized by the fucking Thatcher government, bro. Like, it's right-wing groups, at least in modern capitalist neoliberal states, only grow as much as the status quo conservative party allows them to grow, because they need a militant wing, pretty much. And this is, again, inside of the confines of liberal capitalism, right? Outside of the confines of liberal capitalism, once it turns in on itself, you get mainstream fascist political parties. But just remember, if there are very open Nazi organizations that have not been banned in your state, your country, your region, etc., it's because the local mainstream center-right or right-wing party wants them to exist. They're probably even buddies.
Potential amongst the white skinheads that the offshoot of racist skinheads arose. In the mid to late 80s, when the white power skinhead movement was kind of sweeping the United States, there were more traditional skinheads who stood up and said, hey, that's not what skinhead's about. What we now know as Antifa started back then with groups called Sharp. It was Skinheads Against Racial Prejudice. So Sharps were our favorite target as well. And then there was also another group called Anti-Racist Action. I was actually at a neo-Nazi rally in Michigan where about 50 of us brawled with like 500 anti-fascists. And that was a real like formative moment in my path from just being a drunken hooligan to being like a militant racist. There was a time we were walking down.
So you're telling me that to turn a hooligan into a militant racist, you need an anti-fascist to beat the shit out of him? That's not how it works.
A street in a posh area, very late at night, and we saw an Afro-American kid on his own, and somebody just walked up to him and said, oh, look, N-bomb. Then we all just swarmed on him and just started punting him. That will haunt me to my grave, and it should. It was a horrible thing to do. But that happened fairly often. Even though we were really out looking for the baldies, if we didn't find the baldies and someone else was in the way, they were the ones who were going to get it. At the same time, many of the people that I beat up were just like random white dudes, just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And
yeah, the representation of a just very badly organized group. I'm not saying that this sort of infighting doesn't happen all the time. Hell, like if we can find any correlation, any constant in history's fascist movements is that they very often do a lot of fucking cleansing internally, aka in their attempt to concentrate power in the in whatever executive branch of the party manages to climb on top. They tend to quite literally murder at least the leadership, if not everybody who's a member of the off group that does not want to be subsumed by the main category. aka, Nazis basically killing or subsuming the brown shirts and so on.
And I had no idea who they were. I would try to rationalize it afterwards that he was a race traitor and that's why he got beat up. But it was really just that I was addicted to that violence the same way as I'm addicted to the hate, and I needed a fix. I felt bad while I was in the movement. I had this inner voice going, what the hell are you doing? This guy didn't do anything to you. You don't even know who this guy is. I didn't have the courage to even acknowledge that voice, much less answer those questions. Aside from the fights and my bands, my main activity in the group was I did a lot of networking with other white nationalist groups. So we'd get road trips organized, and quite often also it involved rallies. When you're having a white power rally, you obviously want as many people as you can get there. Therefore, that's when you flex that network, and you're in Detroit and you're reaching out to the guys in Milwaukee and Chicago and St. Paul and Columbus and be like, hey guys, everybody come to Michigan, we're gonna have this rally.
Yeah, and we can see that for the last 50 years when it comes to these sorts of neo-Nazi organizations, at least in the United States, it was not necessarily successful. But what is successful, though, is redefining the reactionary point around which you want to organize your particular reactionary movement. And it can be everything from, incel rhetoric about women to conspiracies about who really runs the government to, as we now see in the United States, specifically a kind of social category, which is immigrants as the other, but also the social category around which we must all unify, which when it comes to the United States is the Christian American, the citizen Christian American, right? So these guys, obviously all fucking losers that ended up not creating anything and, well, maybe dangerous locally, etc., etc. There is a much bigger and scarier enemy looming, and they are far less in the open when it comes to what they believe in, except when, it slips from time to time in the form of Elon Musk doing a literal salute. But what I'm trying to say basically is be far more afraid of the looming threat of ethnocentric, but not only ethnocentric, fascist ideologies that, don't fucking wear a swastika on the patch, right? What is my chat doing? What are you fighting about? You, they're fighting me? We have a chat, I think. No, resolve your problems. I was following the chat. You're talking about whether colonialism was a strictly European category or whether Asian countries also did colonialism. Chat, do I need to start blasting by Toasty? There's no need to start blasting because I will be blasting off my beautiful chatters. I will see you tomorrow, actually. Because, as I said, I need to go to a fucking funeral, so I might not stream one of the other days when I said that I need to stream. Now, let me send you to my friend, who should it be today? I already sent you to Rob recently. Let me send you, I haven't sent you to the Surfs in a second. Let me send you to my friends from the Surfs TV. Say hi, make sure to spam. There you might cover something that we haven't covered today. You know what? Spam, baby! Make yourself fucking heard, brother. Don't forget to cute. Always be cuting, always be cuting, always be cuting. Thank you to everybody who followed. If you haven't, it's literally a click of a button. You know when I stream. It's quite lovely. It's quite lovely. Thank you to everybody who subscribed. Without you, I would not be able to do what I do. So really, hats off, but not literally, but yes, literally. No, not literally, metaphorically. Genuinely, thank you from the bottom of my heart. And thank you to my mods, without whom none of this would be possible. Go subscribe to the Yugopnik Live fucking YouTube channel. Literally, Yugopnik live. Whenever you miss my lives, there's plenty of good shit being uploaded there by my lovely fucking mods. They've become quite regular, and I'm very, very proud of these motherfuckers. So check that shit out. What else? Yeah, follow me on all the socials. You see the socials down there. This was a nice stream. This was an educational stream. It was very, very chill. Now go over to the Surfs TV, spam our shit, and I will see you soon. Many kisses.